The door was splintering, so was she. Lila Carter pressed her back against cold tile, her shattered arm cradled against her chest, fingers trembling around a business card she'd hidden for 3 months. Outside the bathroom, her husband's fists hammered wood that wouldn't hold much longer. She'd survived 4 years of this. Tonight felt different. Tonight felt final. The card was crumpled, stained with old coffee and newer blood. One name, one number, one man who terrified her almost as much as the one breaking down the door. Her thumb hovered over the call button. If you want to see how Lila's desperate choice changes everything, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The bathroom light buzzed like a dying insect, flickering just enough to make the blood on Lila's arm look darker than it probably was. She couldn't tell anymore. Everything hurt in waves now, rolling through her body with each heartbeat. The arm was definitely broken. She'd heard it snap when Marcus grabbed her wrist and twisted, his other hand shoving her backward into the kitchen counter. That was maybe 20 minutes ago, maybe 30. Time did weird things when you were bleeding on your own bathroom floor. Lila. Marcus's voice came through the door, deceptively calm now. That was worse than the yelling. The calm meant he was thinking, strategizing. Baby, come on. Open the door. Let's talk about this. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Her throat had closed up somewhere between the kitchen and this 8x6 prison that smelled like bleach and the lavender soap she'd bought last week, back when she still believed normal things mattered. Another bang. The doorframe cracked. Her phone screen blurred as tears finally came. She'd been holding them back. Crying made him angrier, but he couldn't see her now, and her body was giving up on all the rules she'd learned to survive him. The business card was destroying itself in her grip, the expensive cardstock going soft with sweat and blood. She'd found it in her coat pocket 3 months ago, the morning after a night she barely remembered. A hospital fundraiser Marcus had insisted they attend because his boss would be there. She'd worn the navy dress he liked, smiled when he needed her to, drank exactly 1 glass of wine because more than that made him suspicious. She'd stepped outside for air around midnight. The winter cold had felt good against her skin, sharp and clean. That's when she'd met Adrian Voss. She hadn't known who he was then. Just a man in an expensive suit smoking a cigarette near the valet stand, watching the glittering party through glass doors like he was studying something distasteful. He'd looked at her, really looked, in a way that made her want to check if her makeup was smudged or if the bruise on her collarbone was showing above her dress line. You should go back inside, he'd said. His voice was rough, smoke-damaged, maybe. It's too cold out here. I needed a minute. She'd wrapped her arms around herself, immediately regretting it, because the gesture screamed victim, and she'd worked so hard to not look like one. From what? The question was too direct, too knowing. She should have walked away. Instead, she'd laughed, this brittle sound that hurt coming out. The party. Bullshit. She'd looked at him then, actually looked. Maybe 40, maybe older. Dark hair with gray at the temples, eyes that didn't blink enough. A scar cutting through his left eyebrow that looked old and earned. Everything about him said danger, which should have sent her running. You don't know me, she'd said. I know what I'm looking at. Before she could respond, Marcus had appeared at the doors, waving her back inside. She'd gone immediately. She always went immediately, but not before the stranger pressed something into her hand. If you ever need help, he'd said quietly, call that number. Anytime, day or night. She should have thrown it away. Should have forgotten the whole interaction. Instead, she'd hidden the card in her winter coat pocket and tried not to think about why. Now, sitting on her bathroom floor with her husband breaking down the door, she was thinking about it. The phone screen showed 11:47 p.m. She pulled up the keypad with shaking fingers and typed the number before she could change her mind. Each digit felt like a betrayal of something, though she couldn't name what. Safety, maybe. The illusion that she could handle this herself. The lie that things would get better if she just tried harder to be what Marcus needed. The door shuddered. Wood splintered near the lock. She hit call. It rang once. Twice. Yes. Not a question. Just acknowledgement that someone was on the other end of the line, waiting. Her voice cracked. She tried again. You said I could call. Silence. Then, Leela. He remembered her name. She'd never told him her name. Where are you? His voice changed, sharpened. She heard movement on his end, footsteps, a door closing. Home. I'm... Another crash against the door. She flinched so hard she dropped the phone. It clattered on the tile and she scrambled for it, her broken arm screaming protest. Please, he's going to... Address, now. She rattled it off, the words running together. The apartment complex on Riverside. Building C, 3rd floor, Unit 312. Details she'd memorized 4 years ago when Marcus had insisted they move here, away from her friends, her job, everyone who knew her before. Bathroom? Bedroom? Bathroom. Door's locked, but keep it locked. I'm 12 minutes away. He'll break through before, then make it 10. The call ended. Lila stared at her phone screen, at the call log showing 1 minute and 33 seconds to a number she'd never thought she'd use. What had she done? She didn't know this man, didn't know what he was or what he'd want in return for helping her. The rumors she'd heard later, after that night, whispered behind hands at the country club. Adrian Voss. Some kind of businessman, but the kind nobody asked too many questions about. Connected, powerful, dangerous. The door exploded inward. Marcus stood in the doorway, breathing hard, his tie loosened and his sleeves rolled up. He looked almost normal except for his eyes. She knew those eyes. They were black and empty, and she'd seen them right before every broken promise, every shove, every night that ended with her cleaning up blood. 4 years, he said, stepping over the splintered wood. 4 fucking years, Lila, and you still don't learn. She pressed herself against the wall, cradling her arm. Marcus, please. Please, what? He crouched down to her level, and she could smell the scotch on his breath, the cologne he wore every day because he thought it made him smell expensive. Please don't be mad that you tried to lock me out of my own bathroom. Please don't be upset that you broke a plate from the set my mother gave us. I didn't mean to drop it. You never mean to do anything. His hand shot out, grabbing her hair. She cried out, tried to pull away, but he yanked her head back until she was looking at the ceiling, at the water stain she'd stared at 100 times before. You never mean to embarrass me in front of my colleagues. Never mean to burn dinner. Never mean to make me feel like I married the stupidest woman in the state. I'm sorry. You're always sorry. He released her hair and stood up, pacing in the small space. Sorry doesn't fix anything, Lila. Sorry doesn't make you less useless. She tasted blood. She'd bitten her tongue when he grabbed her. The pain was almost welcome. It was sharp and specific and real, unlike the nauseating throb of her arm. Get up. She didn't move fast enough. His boot caught her in the ribs, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to drive the air from her lungs. She gasped, curling around herself. I said get up. I can't. My arm. You think I give a shit about your arm? He grabbed her good arm and hauled her to her feet. The room spun. She was going to vomit or pass out or both. You think you can hide from me in my own house? Our house, she whispered. Wrong thing to say. Always the wrong thing. His fist caught her in the stomach. She doubled over, would have fallen if he wasn't holding her up. Distantly, she heard herself making sounds, animal sounds, nothing human, and hated herself for it. Say that again. His breath was hot against her ear. Say one more word about what's yours and I'll... The apartment's front door crashed open. Marcus's head snapped toward the sound. Lila felt his grip loosen slightly, felt him processing this new variable. Nobody had keys to their apartment. Nobody visited. He'd made sure of that. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Fast and deliberate. What the? Marcus dropped her. She hit the floor hard, her broken arm taking part of the impact. The pain was white and absolute. Through it, she heard voices. Clear. Clear. Bathroom. Then he was there. Adrian Voss in the doorway where Marcus had been seconds ago, looking at her on the floor and Marcus standing over her. He was dressed differently than that night 3 months ago. Dark jeans, black jacket, nothing fancy, but he wore them the same way, like clothes were just covering for something more essential underneath. His eyes met hers for half a second. Then they moved to Marcus. You have 3 seconds to step away from her. Marcus actually laughed. Who the fuck are you? 3. This is my wife, my apartment, my... 2. Marcus moved then, but not away. Toward. His hand was already forming a fist, already swinging toward Adrian's face. He never landed it. What happened next took maybe 5 seconds, but Lila's brain couldn't process it in real time. One moment, Marcus was attacking. The next, he was face down on the tile, his arm wrenched behind his back, Adrian's knee pressing into his spine. Marcus was making this high-pitched sound, almost a whine, and Adrian's expression hadn't changed at all. "Don't move," Adrian said quietly. Not to Marcus. To the men behind him. 2 of them, both dressed like they'd just stepped out of a corporate office, except for the way they stood, the way their eyes tracked everything. "Get her up, carefully." The younger one moved forward. He had kind eyes, which seemed wrong for someone who looked like he could break concrete with his hands. "Ma'am, I'm going to help you stand. Tell me if anything hurts too much." Everything hurt too much. She let him lift her anyway, let him support her weight when her legs didn't want to work. Her arm was on fire. Her ribs screamed. Her vision kept graying at the edges. "Lila!" Adrian's voice cut through the fog. "Look at me." She did. He was still kneeling on Marcus, still holding him down like he weighed nothing. "I need you to tell me something. Did he do this tonight, or has this been happening?" The question was simple. The answer wasn't. Marcus thrashed beneath Adrian's knee. "Don't you fucking dare!" Adrian shifted his weight. Something in Marcus's shoulder made a sound. Marcus stopped talking. "Lila," Adrian said again. "The truth." 4 years, she heard herself say. "It's been 4 years." Something flickered across Adrian's face. Not quite anger, colder than that. He looked down at Marcus like he was studying an insect, something small and disposable. "Get her to the car," he told the man holding her up. "Have Daniel look at her arm. I'll be down in 5 minutes." "Adrian," the other man started. 5 minutes. They moved her toward the door. She tried to look back, tried to see what was happening, but her vision was swimming, and the kind-eyed man was murmuring something about watching her step, careful of the door frame, just a little further. The hallway outside was empty. Had the neighbors heard? They always heard. They never came. She'd stopped expecting them to. The man helped her down the stairs. The elevator was broken again. Had been for weeks. And out into the November cold. A black SUV was parked directly in front of the building, engine running. Another man stood beside it, older, with silver hair and glasses that caught the streetlight. "Inside," the kind-eyed man said, opening the back door. She let them guide her in, let the older man, Daniel, she assumed, start examining her arm with gentle, practiced hands. He was talking to her, asking questions about where it hurt and could she move her fingers and when did this happen, but she couldn't focus on the words. Through the SUV's window, she watched the building entrance. 5 minutes, Adrian had said. At minute 3, she heard a sound from upstairs. Not a scream, more like furniture breaking. Then nothing. At minute 4, her phone buzzed. Text message from a number she didn't recognize. "Ambulance on the way for your husband." Told them he fell down the stairs. Clumsy. At minute 5, Adrian walked out of the building. He was carrying a duffel bag she recognized, hers from the bedroom closet, the one she kept packed with clothes and documents and a little bit of cash she'd been saving for 3 years, just in case. He'd somehow known to grab it. He slid into the front passenger seat and looked back at her. "Daniel." Broken ulna, possible fracture in 2 ribs, bruising consistent with repeated trauma. She needs an ER. No hospitals. Adrian's eyes hadn't left Lila's face. Too many questions. Take us to the estate. Call Dr. Morrison. Tell him it's priority. Adrian, if there's internal bleeding, there's not. I know what internal bleeding looks like. He turned forward. Drive. The SUV pulled away from her apartment building, from Marcus, from 4 years of her life that ended tonight on a bathroom floor. Lila watched it all recede through the back window. The building she'd hated, the parking lot where he'd once pushed her out of the car during a fight, the street where she'd walked every day pretending to be fine. "You're going to be okay," the kind-eyed man said. He'd introduced himself as James. Or maybe it was Jason. She couldn't remember. "We're taking you somewhere safe." Safe. The word felt foreign. She tested it in her mind, tried to imagine what it meant, tried to imagine waking up without checking first to see what kind of mood Marcus was in, going to sleep without calculating how to minimize damage if he came home angry, existing without the constant mental math of survival. Her arm throbbed. Her ribs ached. Her head felt stuffed with cotton and broken glass. But she was in a car driving away from him, and he was on the floor of their apartment, and she'd made a choice she couldn't unchoose. "Why?" she asked. Her voice sounded strange, scraped raw. "Why are you helping me?" Adrian didn't turn around. "Because you called." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight." They drove in silence after that, through streets she recognized and then ones she didn't. The city thinned out, gave way to suburbs, then to something that looked almost rural. Trees crowded the road. Houses appeared occasionally, set far back from the street, hidden behind gates and walls. The SUV turned onto a private drive. A gate opened automatically. Lila caught a glimpse of cameras, sensors, things she couldn't name. Security that probably cost more than she'd earned in her entire life. The house at the end of the drive wasn't a house. It was an estate. Stone and glass and architecture that spoke of money so old it didn't need to announce itself. Lights glowed warm in windows. The front door opened as they pulled up, and a woman in her 50s emerged, her expression calm and professional. "Mrs. Chen," Adrian said, getting out, "we have a guest. She'll need the East Wing suite. Dr. Morrison is on his way." "Of course." Mrs. Chen moved to the SUV's back door and looked at Lila with eyes that had probably seen everything. "Let's get you inside, dear. Can you walk?" "I think so." She could. Barely. James, definitely James, he'd said it twice now, helped her out and up the front steps. Inside was warm and smelled like furniture polish and something cooking, something with garlic and herbs that made her stomach twist with hunger she hadn't noticed until now. Mrs. Chen led them through hallways that turned and opened into rooms and turned again. Everything was beautiful in a way that felt effortless, like beauty was just what happened when you had taste and unlimited resources. Art on the walls, rugs that her feet sank into, light fixtures that probably had names and designers. The East Wing suite was bigger than her entire apartment. Bedroom, sitting area, bathroom with a tub she could lie down in. The bed looked like something from a hotel, with about 6 too many pillows and a comforter that was probably actual down. "Sit," Mrs. Chen said, gesturing to an armchair. "Doctor will be here in a few minutes. Are you hungry?" Lila stared at her. I'm not. I'll bring soup and tea. Don't argue." She disappeared through the door, leaving Lila alone with James. He stood near the door, looking uncomfortable. "I can wait outside if you want." "What happens now?" Lila asked. "Now you get patched up. Then you rest. And then? Then we figure out what's next." He shifted his weight. "Look, I know this is a lot. I know you don't know us, don't know what you've walked into, but Adrian doesn't do this kind of thing lightly. If he brought you here, you're safe. That's all you need to worry about tonight. Safe from Marcus. Safe from everything." The doctor arrived 10 minutes later. Dr. Morrison was maybe 60, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd set bones in worse circumstances than this. He examined her arm, confirmed it was broken, and said it with the efficiency that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times. The ribs were cracked, but not broken. The bruises would fade. He gave her pills for the pain, stronger ones than she'd ever had, and told her to rest. Mrs. Chen returned with soup. Chicken, homemade, the kind that steamed and smelled like someone's grandmother had made it, and tea that was the exact temperature between too hot and too cold. She set it on a side table and left without a word. Lila ate because her body demanded it. The soup tasted better than anything she'd had in months. Real food, made by someone who cared about making it right. Adrian appeared in the doorway as she was finishing. He'd changed clothes, dark slacks, white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked more like the man from the fundraiser now, polished, controlled. "How's the arm, doll?" he asked. "Broken." "Yes. I meant, how do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a car." She set the empty bowl down. The pain medication was kicking in, making everything soft around the edges. "What did you do to him?" "Nothing permanent." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." He echoed his words from the car. "Your husband is in the hospital with a dislocated shoulder, 2 broken fingers, and a concussion. He'll tell them he fell down the stairs. He won't say anything else." "How do you know?" "Because I explained what would happen if he did." The certainty in his voice was almost scarier than Marcus's fists. Almost. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said. "You don't know me. We met once. You could have just ignored my call." Adrian walked into the room, pulled up the other armchair, and sat down. He studied her for a long moment, and she fought the urge to look away. "3 months ago," he finally said, "I saw a woman at a party who looked like she was drowning on dry land. I gave her a way out because nobody gave me one when I needed it. She called. I came. That's all this is." "That's not all this is." "No," he agreed, "but it's all we're discussing tonight. You're exhausted, injured, probably in shock. Go to sleep. We'll talk in the morning." He stood to leave. "Adrian." The name felt strange in her mouth, too familiar. "Thank you." He paused at the door. "Don't thank me yet. You don't know what you've traded one cage for." Then he was gone. And Lila was alone in a room bigger than anything she'd ever slept in, with pain medication making her thoughts slow and syrupy, and the reality of what she'd done finally crashing down. She'd left Marcus. After 4 years of telling herself tomorrow, next week, when I save enough money, when I'm strong enough, she'd left. One phone call, one stranger, one moment of desperate courage. The bed was as comfortable as it looked. She lay down carefully, her casted arm propped on a pillow, and stared at the ceiling. This one didn't have water stains. This one had crown molding and recessed lighting and probably cost more than her car. Outside, she heard voices. Adrian saying something low, Mrs. Chen responding, doors closing, the house settling into nighttime quiet. Lila closed her eyes. For the first time in 4 years, she fell asleep without being afraid of what would wake her. Somewhere across the city, in a hospital emergency room, Marcus Carter was explaining to a police officer how he'd fallen down the stairs. Yes, he'd been drinking. Yes, he should have been more careful. No, his wife wasn't home. She was visiting her sister upstate. Had been planning the trip for weeks. The officer wrote it all down, and if he noticed the particular pattern of Marcus's injuries, the way 2 fingers were broken at the same joint, the way the shoulder dislocation suggested forceful manipulation, the way the concussion seemed inconsistent with a simple fall, he didn't mention it. Some things you learn not to see. Marcus signed the discharge papers with his good hand and got into a taxi. The driver asked where to, and Marcus gave his address, then stared out the window as they drove through streets that all looked the same at 2 a.m. His apartment door was unlocked. The bathroom door was splintered on the floor. Lila's things were gone from the bedroom. Not all of them, but the important ones. The duffel bag, her documents, the shoebox where she kept photos from before they met. He sat on the couch and tried to make sense of what had happened. A stranger had broken into his home, had assaulted him, had taken his wife. Except Lila had made a phone call right before the door broke down. He'd heard her voice through the wood, desperate and pleading with someone, giving their address. She'd called them. His wife had called someone to take her away from him. Marcus's good hand curled into a fist. Pain shot through his shoulder and he gasped, forced himself to breathe through it. The man who'd done this, who was he? How did Lila know him? How long had she been planning this? 4 years he'd given her. A home. His name. Everything she had was because of him, and she'd repaid him by running. His phone was on the coffee table. He picked it up, started scrolling through contacts. He had friends, people who owed him favors. His boss had connections, knew people who knew people. He'd find her. She couldn't hide forever, and when he found her, she'd remember why she'd stayed so long in the first place. Because leaving him was one thing, surviving it was something else entirely. Lila woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize, in a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud, with her arm in a cast that reminded her everything from last night was real. The clock on the nightstand read 10:47 a.m. She couldn't remember the last time she'd slept past 7. Marcus always wanted breakfast at 7:30 sharp. Didn't matter if it was a weekday or Sunday. Didn't matter if she'd been up half the night cleaning or crying or both. She sat up slowly, testing her ribs. They hurt, but less than yesterday. The pain medication had worn off enough that everything felt sharp again, present, real. A soft knock on the door made her freeze. "Miss Carter?" Mrs. Chen's voice muffled through the wood. "I have breakfast if you're awake." Yes, come in." Mrs. Chen entered carrying a tray that looked like something from a magazine spread. Fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, toast with actual butter, orange juice in a crystal glass. She set it on the bed like this was normal, like Lila deserved to be served breakfast in bed. "How did you sleep?" Mrs. Chen asked, adjusting the pillows behind Lila's back without being asked. "I slept." It came out awkward. She tried again. "Thank you for the soup last night, and this. You didn't have to eat," Mrs. Chen interrupted, not unkindly. "Then there are clothes in the closet that should fit. Mr. Voss would like to speak with you when you're ready, but there's no rush. Take your time." She left before Lila could formulate another thank you. The eggs were perfect. Not too dry, not too wet, seasoned with something that made them taste expensive. The fruit was fresh enough that juice ran down her chin when she bit into a strawberry. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, and tried not to think about how this compared to the protein bars she usually grabbed, while Marcus complained about his coffee being too hot, or too cold, or too weak. The closet Mrs. Chen mentioned turned out to be a walk-in the size of her old bedroom. Inside hung clothes with tags still attached, jeans in her size, soft sweaters, a few dresses that looked casual but probably cost more than her monthly grocery budget used to. Underwear still in packages. Socks. Everything she'd need. Someone had prepared for her, before she'd even called. Or they kept spare clothes for women who showed up broken in the middle of the night, which was somehow worse to think about. She chose jeans and a gray sweater, dressed carefully around her cast. The bathroom had a shower with 6 different settings and toiletries that smelled like bergamot and something floral she couldn't name. She managed to wash her hair one-handed, brushed her teeth with a toothbrush still in plastic, and stared at herself in the mirror. The bruise on her cheekbone had darkened overnight, purple spreading into yellow at the edges. Her lip was split. There were finger-shaped marks on her neck she didn't remember getting. She looked like what she was, someone who'd been used as a punching bag. She looked away. Adrian was in what Mrs. Chen called the study, though it looked more like a library from a movie. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather furniture, a desk that was probably an antique. He was reading something on a tablet, reading glasses perched on his nose, looking almost normal until you noticed the way he sat, alert even at rest, ready for something. He glanced up when she appeared in the doorway. "How's the arm?" "Attached." She hovered at the threshold, unsure if she was supposed to come in or wait to be invited. "Mrs. Chen said you wanted to talk." "Sit." He gestured to one of the chairs across from his desk, set the tablet aside, removed his glasses. "We need to discuss what happens next." Lila sat. The leather was soft and worn in, conforming to her back. "What does happen next?" "That depends on what you want." "I don't know what I want." "Yes, you do." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "You want to not go back to him. Everything else is details." The bluntness was almost refreshing. No dancing around it, no pretending this was anything other than what it was. "He'll look for me," she said. "He already is." He made 8 phone calls this morning before his pain medication kicked in. His boss, his brother, 2 friends from college, 3 people I haven't identified yet. Adrian said this like he was reading a grocery list. "He's told them you've been kidnapped." Her stomach dropped. "What?" "Relax." Nobody believes him. He's got a history of making dramatic accusations when he's drunk. And right now he's on enough medication that his doctor had to cut him off. But yes, he's looking. And yes, he'll eventually find people willing to help him. So what do I do? You let me handle it. Handle it how? Adrian was quiet for a moment, studying her face like he was deciding how much truth she could take. Your husband works for Sterling Financial Group, mid-level management. He makes decent money but spends more than he earns, mostly on maintaining an image he can't afford. He's been skimming from departmental budgets for 2 years. Nothing major, few thousand here and there, but enough that if someone looked closely, they'd find a pattern. Lila stared at him. How do you know that? I make it my business to know things. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, turned it to show her. Financial statements, transaction records, emails with dates and times. He's also been having an affair with his boss's assistant for 6 months, meeting her at a hotel on 7th Street every Thursday afternoon, charged to a credit card he thinks you don't know about. She'd known about the credit card, hadn't known about the affair, though she wasn't surprised. Mostly she felt nothing, which was almost worse than feeling something. Why are you telling me this? Because knowledge is leverage, and right now, you need leverage. Adrian set the phone down. I can make him disappear from your life completely. Destroy his career, his reputation, make it so he can't find you even if he tries. But I need your permission to do it. Why do you need my permission? Because this is your life, not mine. I won't make decisions for you that you'll regret later. Lila looked at her hands. The cast was bright white, glaring. She'd have to wear it for 6 weeks minimum. 6 weeks of visible proof that she'd let someone hurt her for 4 years. If you do this, she said slowly, what does he lose? Everything that matters to him, his job, his reputation, his ability to hurt you. Adrian paused. He won't go to jail. The legal system doesn't work that way for men like him. Respectable job, no prior record. He'd claim it was mutual combat or you provoked him, and it becomes he said, she said. But he'll lose the life he built. That's what I can give you. And what do you get? The question hung in the air between them. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Peace of mind, he said finally. I don't like men who hit women. Call it a character flaw. That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting. He stood, walked to the window overlooking grounds that stretched farther than she could see. You don't trust me. That's smart. You shouldn't trust anyone right now, especially not someone like me. But you called my number, and I came, and now we're here. So decide what you want, and I'll make it happen. Leela thought about Marcus in their apartment, making phone calls, spinning stories about kidnapping. Thought about him telling people she was unstable, dramatic, probably hurt herself for attention. Thought about him getting away with 4 years of breaking her down piece by piece because he knew how to look good in public. Thought about never having to see him again. Do it, she said. Whatever you're going to do, I want him gone. Adrian nodded once. Then he's gone. He made a phone call, speaking in shorthand to someone named Victor. Account numbers, dates, file transfers. It sounded like business talk until you listened closely and heard the underlying threat in every word. He hung up after 3 minutes. It's done. By Monday, Sterling Financial will have an anonymous tip about discrepancies in Marcus's department. By Tuesday, he'll be under investigation. By Wednesday, he'll be fired. The affair will come out during the investigation, which means his boss will hate him, and his boss's wife will make sure everyone at the country club knows. He'll be toxic in this city within a week. That fast? I'm efficient. He returned to his desk. Now we discuss you. What about me? Where you want to be? What you want to do? Whether you're staying here or going somewhere else? The question made her head spin. Want. What did she want? She'd spent 4 years not wanting anything because wanting things made Marcus angry, made him accuse her of being selfish or ungrateful or too demanding. I don't know, she admitted. Then stay here until you figure it out. You've got the East Wing. Mrs. Chen will make sure you have everything you need. There's a gym if you want to use it, a library, grounds to walk if you need air. Stay a week, stay a month, however long it takes. I can't just live in your house. Why not? Because we're not. She struggled for words. I can't pay you. I don't have money. Everything was in Marcus's name, his accounts, his cards. I have maybe $300 saved. I'm not asking you to pay me. Then what are you asking? Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his desk. I'm asking you to heal, to rest, to figure out who you are when someone's not telling you you're worthless every day. That's it. No strings, no expectations, no payment required. Nobody does that. I do. She wanted to argue, to point out how insane this was, how he had to want something because everyone wanted something. But she was tired, her arm hurt, and the alternative was going back to an apartment that still smelled like Marcus's cologne and had her blood on the bathroom floor. Okay, she said quietly. I'll stay. For a little while. Good. He pulled out a business card, different from the one she'd destroyed last night, but same name, same number. My direct line. You need anything, you call, day or night. She took the card. Her fingers brushed his, just for a second, and she fought the urge to pull back. Touch had meant pain for so long that even casual contact set off alarms. If Adrian noticed, he didn't comment. The next few days passed in a strange haze of quiet routine. Lila woke up late, ate breakfast that appeared like magic, and spent her time exploring the estate in careful increments. The library had books she'd wanted to read for years, but Marcus had said were a waste of time. The gym had equipment she didn't know how to use, but looked at anyway. The grounds had gardens that were still green despite November, and paths that wound through trees that reminded her of childhood, before everything got complicated. Mrs. Chen appeared at regular intervals with food, fresh towels, casual conversation that never pushed too hard. She'd been with Adrian for 15 years, she mentioned once. Seen a lot of things. Didn't judge. James was around too, usually in the background, doing things that looked like security but felt more like keeping an eye on her. He'd nod when they passed in hallways, ask if she needed anything, anything, then disappear again. Adrian himself was scarce. She'd see him in the morning sometimes, drinking coffee in the kitchen while reading something on his tablet. He'd ask how she slept, if her arm hurt, if Mrs. Chen was taking care of her. Then he'd leave for the day, returning late, shutting himself in his study. It was like living in a hotel run by people who actually cared if you were okay. On the fourth day, Dr. Morrison returned to check her ribs and change the dressing on some cuts she'd forgotten about. He was gentle, methodical, and didn't ask questions about how she'd gotten injured, just fixed what was broken and told her to take the pain medication on schedule. "You're healing well," he said, packing up his bag. "The ribs will hurt for another few weeks, but the arm is setting nicely. You were lucky." Lucky. She almost laughed. On the fifth day, she found Adrian in the study again, this time surrounded by papers that looked legal and complicated. He glanced up when she knocked. "Marcus was fired yesterday," he said without preamble. "Escorted out by security. The affair is public knowledge as of this morning. Someone leaked photos to the local news site. He's trying to claim you set him up, but nobody's listening." Lila absorbed this. Waited for the guilt to hit, or the satisfaction, or something. Felt mostly numb. How's he taking it? Badly. He showed up drunk at his boss's house last night, made threats, got the police called on him. He's lucky they just sent him home with a warning. Adrian set down whatever he was reading. "He'll escalate. Men like him always do when they lose control." "You sound like you've seen this before." "I have." He didn't elaborate. "Which is why I'm telling you that you're safe here. But if you leave the grounds, you take James with you. No arguments." "I'm not leaving the grounds." "You will eventually, and when you do, you don't go alone." She wanted to argue, to say she wasn't a prisoner, but he was right. She wasn't ready to face the world yet. Wasn't ready to risk running into Marcus at a grocery store or coffee shop or anywhere he might be waiting. "Okay," she said. "James comes with me." "Good." He returned to his papers, then paused. "There's a therapist who comes here sometimes, Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen. She specializes in trauma. I can set up a session if you want." "You have a therapist on call?" "I have a lot of things on call." His mouth quirked, almost a smile. "It's not mandatory, but it might help." Leela thought about it. Therapy had always seemed like something for other people. People who had time and money and problems that weren't just stop letting your husband hit you. But she also knew she couldn't stay in this fog forever, couldn't keep wandering these halls like a ghost waiting for permission to exist. "Set it up," she said. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived 2 days later, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and an office set up in one of the estate's unused rooms. She didn't waste time with pleasantries, just got straight to asking questions that made Lila's chest tight. "How long were you with Marcus?" 4 years. "When did the physical abuse start?" 6 months in, maybe 8. It's hard to remember exactly. "Did you ever try to leave before?" "Twice. The first time he found me at my sister's place within a day. Showed up crying, apologizing, promising it would never happen again. I believed him." Lila stared at her hands. "The second time I made it to a women's shelter. He found me there too. I don't know how. But he did. And I went back because I was scared of what he'd do if I didn't. And this time? This time I had help." Dr. Chen wrote something down. "Tell me about Adrian." "I don't really know him. We met once, months ago. He gave me his number, said to call if I needed help. I didn't think I'd ever use it." "But you did." "I was out of options." The memory of that bathroom, the splintering door, the certainty that this time Marcus wouldn't stop, it hit her hard enough to steal her breath. "I thought I was going to die." "That's a normal response to what you experienced. Your brain was in survival mode. It still is, which is why you're probably having trouble sleeping, trouble eating, trouble trusting that this is real. Lila nodded. All of that was true. Healing from this kind of trauma isn't linear, Dr. Chen continued. Some days will be better than others. Some days you'll feel strong, and some days you'll feel like you're back in that bathroom. Both are okay. Both are part of the process. They talked for an hour. Dr. Chen gave her homework, journaling mostly, writing down thoughts and feelings and memories. Said they'd meet twice a week for now, more if Lila needed it. When she left, Lila felt wrung out and exhausted, but also lighter somehow, like she'd set down something heavy she'd been carrying too long. Adrian found her in the library that evening, curled up in a chair with a book she wasn't really reading. "How was the session?" he asked. "Hard. It's supposed to be." He sat in the chair across from her. "She's good at what she does. Trust the process." "Do you see her, Dr. Chen?" "Sometimes." "For what?" He gave her a look that said she was pushing. "Things I don't talk about with people I barely know." "Fair enough." "Can I ask you something?" Lila said. "You can ask. I might not answer." "Why do you live like this? The security, the estate, the—" She gestured vaguely. "Everything. What are you protecting yourself from?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The same things everyone protects themselves from, just with better resources." "That's a non-answer." "It's the answer you're getting." He stood. "Dinner's at 7, if you want to join." "Mrs. Chen's making something with chicken." He left before she could respond. But at 7, she went downstairs to the dining room she hadn't used yet. The table was massive, could probably seat 20 people, but only 2 places were set, one at the head, one to the right. Adrian was already there, reading something on his phone. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. "You invited me." "I invite you every night. This is the first time you've shown up." She hadn't realized he'd been inviting her, thought the meals appearing in her room were just standard procedure. Mrs. Chen brought out food, roasted chicken with herbs she couldn't name, vegetables that tasted like they'd come from a garden, bread that was still warm. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. "Marcus filed a missing persons report," Adrian said eventually. "Listed you as endangered, possibly kidnapped, mentally unstable." Lila's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "What happens with that?" "Nothing. Police talked to your neighbors, who confirmed they heard arguments but never saw you leave. They talked to Marcus's doctor, who noted his injuries were inconsistent with his story. They talked to me because apparently someone mentioned my name, probably Marcus, trying to make trouble. I told them I'd never heard of you." "You lied to the police?" "I redirected the truth. There's a difference." He cut his chicken with precision. "The report will go nowhere. They'll close it as a domestic dispute where the wife left of her own free will. Marcus will try to make noise about it, but he's already lost credibility. He's not going to stop." "No, men like him don't stop until they're forced to." Adrian looked at her directly. "Which is why next week you're going to file a restraining order. And the week after that, you're going to file for divorce. And Marcus is going to sign whatever papers are put in front of him, because fighting them will cost money he doesn't have anymore and expose things he wants to keep hidden." "You've already planned all this." "I plan everything." He resumed eating. "But you still have to be the one who does it. I can't file the orders for you. Can't sign your divorce papers. This part, you do yourself." The thought terrified her. Walking into a courthouse, facing Marcus across a legal table, admitting in official documents that her marriage had been a nightmare. "I don't know if I can." "You can. You just don't believe you can yet." Adrian set down his fork. 3 weeks ago, you were locked in a bathroom thinking you were going to die. Now you're sitting at my table eating dinner and talking about divorce like it's a real possibility. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong." "Strength isn't a feeling. It's a choice you make when you're terrified." They finished dinner. Mrs. Chen cleared the plates and brought coffee that was strong and black and exactly what Lila needed. "Can I ask you something else?" Lila said. Adrian sighed. "You're going to anyway." "What do you actually do? For work?" "I manage investments." "That's a lie." "It's technically true." He sipped his coffee. "I manage investments in various businesses. Some legal, some less legal, all profitable." "You're a criminal." I'm a businessman who operates in gray areas. He didn't look bothered by the accusation. Does that scare you? It should. But does it? Lila thought about it. Thought about this man who'd broken into her apartment, assaulted her husband, brought her to his home and asked for nothing in return. Who planned her future like it mattered, who set up therapy sessions and restraining orders and acted like her safety was worth the trouble. No, she admitted, it doesn't scare me. Then you're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both. He almost smiled. Maybe. That night, Lila lay in bed staring at the ceiling that had no water stains, listening to silence that had no threat underneath it, and tried to imagine a future where she wasn't defined by what Marcus had done to her. It was hard. The shape of it kept shifting, blurring at the edges. But it was there, faint and distant, like light at the end of a tunnel she was finally walking toward. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Stop hiding and come home. We can fix this. Marcus. He'd somehow gotten her number, or maybe he'd always had it saved. She stared at the message, felt her heartbeat spike, her breath catch. Another text. You're making this worse. I love you. Come back. The word love made her want to throw the phone across the room. Instead, she forwarded both messages to Adrian. His response came within seconds. Block him. I'll handle it. She blocked the number, tried to sleep. Failed. Around 2 a.m., she gave up and went downstairs. The house was dark except for light coming from under the study door. She knocked softly. Come in. Adrian was at his desk, paper spread everywhere, looking like he hadn't slept either. Can't sleep? He asked. He texted me, said he loves me and I should come home. He doesn't love you. He loves owning you. There's a difference. Adrian closed his laptop. You blocked him? Yes. Good. He'll try other numbers, keep blocking. Eventually he'll realize you're serious. What if he doesn't? Then I make him realize it in ways he won't enjoy. The certainty in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it was almost comforting. Do you ever sleep? She asked. Not much. Why not? Bad dreams, old habits, take your pick. He gestured to the chair. You want company, or you want to go back to bed? She sat. They didn't talk about anything important, just books they'd read, movies they'd seen, places they'd traveled before life got complicated. Small talk that felt big because it was the first time in years anyone had asked what she thought about anything. The sun was coming up when she finally went back to her room. She slept until noon. The next week passed in increments of small bravery, filing the restraining order with a lawyer Adrian knew, who asked questions in clinical terms, and didn't make her feel ashamed, meeting with Dr. Chen twice more, crying through both sessions, feeling like she was breaking open, and maybe that was necessary. Walking the estate grounds with James trailing 20 feet behind, giving her space but staying close enough to matter. Marcus tried calling from different numbers. She blocked them all. He tried showing up at the estate gates once. Security turned him away before he got close. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. Lila signed them with a shaking hand and didn't let herself think about what she was ending, just what she was finally allowing herself to start. On Friday, 2 weeks after she'd called Adrian from her bathroom floor, she woke up and realized she wasn't afraid anymore. Not completely, not forever. But in that moment, in that bed, in that room, she wasn't afraid. It felt like breathing for the first time in 4 years. The feeling didn't last. By Saturday morning, Lila was back to checking over her shoulder every time she heard footsteps, flinching when doors closed too loud, holding her breath when car engines sounded outside. Fear had lived in her body too long to evict it with 2 weeks of safety and some therapy sessions. She was in the kitchen making coffee. Mrs. Chen had taught her how to use the expensive machine that looked like it belonged in a cafe when Adrian appeared in the doorway. He was dressed differently than usual, jeans and a dark jacket, car keys in his hand. I need to go into the city, he said. Handle some business. You want to come? Lila's first instinct was to say no, to stay here where walls and gates and security cameras kept the world at a manageable distance. But she'd been hiding for 2 weeks, and hiding was just another kind of cage. Okay, she heard herself say. James will drive. We'll be gone most of the day. Adrian studied her face. You sure? You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. 20 minutes later, she was in the back of the SUV with Adrian, James at the wheel, watching the estate disappear behind them. The world outside looked too bright, too loud, too full of possibilities for things to go wrong. "Where are we going?" she asked. "I have a meeting at one of my properties downtown. Shouldn't take more than an hour. After that, we can go wherever you want." "I don't know where I want to go." "Then we'll drive until you figure it out." The city looked different than she remembered. Or maybe she was different, seeing it through eyes that weren't constantly calculating escape routes from Marcus's moods. They passed the hospital where she'd gone to fundraisers, the restaurant where Marcus had proposed, the park where they used to walk before he decided walking was a waste of time that could be spent making him dinner. None of it hurt the way she'd expected. It was just places, buildings and streets that had no power over her unless she gave it to them. Adrian's property turned out to be a nightclub in a part of downtown that was trying hard to look upscale. The sign read Meridian in chrome letters, and even in daylight, you could tell this place catered to people with money to burn. "You own a nightclub?" Lila said as they pulled into a private garage. "I own 6. This one's having management issues." Adrian got out, waited for her to follow. "Stay close. Some of the people here aren't as friendly as Mrs. Chen." The club's interior was all dark wood and leather, with a bar that stretched the length of one wall and a stage set up for live music. A man in his 50s was waiting near the bar, expensive suit that didn't quite hide the nervous energy rolling off him. "Mr. Voss." He extended his hand. "Thank you for coming. I know you're busy." "This is Carter," Adrian said, gesturing to Lila without explaining who she was or why she was there. "Talk." The man, Adrian called him Stevens, launched into an explanation about inventory discrepancies, staff stealing from the till, a bartender who was apparently running his own side business selling drugs out of the men's bathroom. Adrian listened without expression, asked 3 questions that made Stevens sweat, then delivered a solution that was efficient and brutal. "Fire the bartender, prosecute if you have evidence, pay him off if you don't. Install cameras in the stockroom and the office. Anyone caught stealing gets 1 warning, then they're gone. And Stevens, if I have to come back here in 6 months because you still can't run a club without it bleeding money, we're going to have a different conversation." "Yes, sir. Absolutely. It won't happen again." They left Stevens looking relieved and terrified in equal measure. Back in the SUV, Lila said, "You scare people. Only the ones who need scaring." "Do I need scaring?" Adrian looked at her. "Do you think you do?" "No." "Then there's your answer." He pulled out his phone, typed something. "You hungry?" She was, actually. Eating had started to feel normal again instead of something she forced herself to do. They ended up at a small Italian place tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, the kind of restaurant that didn't advertise because it didn't need to. Adrian was greeted by name, shown to a corner booth that had privacy and a clear view of the entrance. Old habits, Lila was starting to realize. He always positioned himself to see who was coming. "Order whatever you want," he said, handing her a menu that had no prices. She chose pasta with vodka sauce because it sounded comforting. Adrian ordered something in Italian that made the waiter smile and nod approvingly. "You come here a lot?" she asked. "Used to, haven't been in a while." He sipped water from a glass that was probably crystal. "The owner's family. Distant cousin on my mother's side. Good food, good wine. No questions asked about my business." "Must be nice, having family you can trust." "It is. You don't have that." Lila thought about her sister, who'd stopped returning calls after Marcus convinced her that Lila was dramatic and unstable. Thought about her parents, who'd died in a car accident when she was 22, right before she met Marcus. No aunts or uncles close enough to matter. No cousins who'd stayed in touch. "I used to," she said. "Before Marcus made sure I didn't." The food arrived before Adrian could respond. Her pasta was perfect, creamy and rich, and exactly what she'd needed without knowing it. They ate in silence for a while, the kind that felt comfortable instead of awkward. "Can I ask you something?" Lila said eventually. Adrian sighed. "You ask me a lot of questions." "You don't have to answer. Ask." "That night, when you gave me your card, how did you know I needed help?" He set down his fork, considering. "You had this look, like you were drowning but trying to smile through it." "I've seen that look before." He paused. "My mother had that look for most of my childhood." Lila waited. He didn't elaborate. "Your father?" she asked quietly. "Yeah." One word carrying weight he didn't unpack. He's dead now. Has been for 15 years. Doesn't change what he did when he was alive. I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not. Adrian returned to his food. Point is, I recognized what I was seeing, and I don't leave people drowning if I can throw them a rope. Even strangers? Especially strangers. They're easier. No history, no complicated feelings, just help and move on. Is that what this is? Help and move on. He looked at her then, really looked, and something passed between them that Lila couldn't name. I don't know yet, he said honestly. They finished lunch, Adrian paid cash, left a tip that was probably more than the meal cost, and they headed back to the SUV. Where to now? James asked from the driver's seat. Lila surprised herself by answering, The library, the main branch downtown. Adrian raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask why. The library was exactly as she remembered. Marble steps, carved doors, the smell of old books, and floor polish. She'd spent hours here in college, back when studying felt like freedom, and the future seemed full of possibility. Then she'd met Marcus, and libraries became a waste of time, and reading became something she did in secret because he thought it made her neglect her duties as a wife. She wandered the stacks while Adrian and James waited near the entrance. Fiction, non-fiction, biographies of people who'd survived impossible things. Her fingers trailed over spines, pulled out books at random, read first lines that promised escape or understanding or both. She checked out 4 books with the library card she'd forgotten she still had. The librarian smiled and said it was good to see her again. Walking out into afternoon sunlight with books under her good arm, Lila felt something shift. Small, barely noticeable, but real. She'd wanted to come here. She'd said it out loud. And someone had listened without telling her it was stupid or inconvenient or not what he wanted to do. Feel better? Adrian asked. Yeah, I do. They drove back to the estate as the sun started setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple that looked almost fake. Lila watched the city give way to suburbs, suburbs give way to trees, and tried to remember the last time she'd spent a whole day just existing without fear sitting heavy in her chest. The peace lasted until they turned onto the estate's private drive. The gate was open. That was wrong. It was never open, always closed until the security system recognized the car. James noticed it the same moment she did, his shoulders tensing, his hand moving toward something under his jacket. Adrian, he said quietly. I see it. Adrian's voice had changed, gone cold and sharp. Lila, get down. What? Down. Now. She slid onto the floor between the seats, her heart suddenly hammering. Through the window she could see the house getting closer, could see the front door standing open. The SUV stopped. Adrian was already moving, gun in his hand that she hadn't seen him draw. James was out too, positioned behind his door, scanning the grounds. Stay in the car, Adrian told her. Lock the doors. If anything happens, you call 911 and you drive away. Don't wait for us. Adrian, but he was already gone, moving toward the house with James flanking him. They disappeared inside. Lila stayed on the floor, phone clutched in her shaking hand, counting her heartbeats because it was better than thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. 1 minute passed. 2. 5. Her phone buzzed. Text from Adrian. Clear. You can come in. She unlocked the doors with fingers that wouldn't stop trembling, climbed out into evening air that felt too cold, and walked toward the house on legs that barely held her weight. Inside, the damage was surgical. Someone had gone through Adrian's study, his office upstairs, his bedroom. Papers everywhere, drawers pulled out, a systematic search that hadn't bothered with subtlety. But nothing else was touched. Not the kitchen, not her room, not any of the common areas. They'd been looking for something specific. Marcus? She asked, though she knew the answer. No. Adrian was standing in his destroyed study, face expressionless in a way that was somehow scarier than anger. Marcus doesn't have the skill or the connections for this. Someone else sent a message. What kind of message? The kind that says I've made someone nervous. He crouched down, picked up a file folder that had been thrown on the floor. The kind that says helping you has consequences. Guilt hit her like a punch. This is my fault. This is Marcus's fault for putting his hands on you, and my fault for underestimating how far he'd go. Adrian stood, handed the folder to James. Make copies of everything. I want to know what they were looking for and what they found. You think Marcus hired someone to break in here? Lila asked. I think Marcus talked to the wrong people about his missing wife and the man who helped her disappear. And those people got curious. Adrian finally looked at her. You okay? I'm fine. Your house is the one that got ransacked. House can be fixed. He walked to where she stood frozen in the doorway. You're shaking. I thought, when we saw the gate, I thought maybe you'd... I'm fine, we're fine. His hand reached out like he might touch her shoulder, then dropped, still learning her boundaries. Go to your room, lock the door, I'll handle this. I don't want to be alone right now. The admission surprised them both. Adrian studied her face for a long moment. Okay, kitchen. I'll make coffee, you can sit there and not be alone. Deal? Deal. The kitchen was untouched, exactly as they'd left it this morning. Adrian made coffee in the expensive machine, while Lila sat at the counter and tried to stop her hands from shaking. Mrs. Chen appeared from wherever she'd been during the break-in, her cottage on the property probably, took one look at the situation and started making something that involved garlic and olive oil and smelled like comfort. This has happened before, Lila said. Not a question. Twice. Different circumstances. Adrian set a mug in front of her. Comes with the territory. What territory? What do you actually do that makes people break into your house? He leaned against the counter across from her. I told you, I manage investments. In what? Drug cartels, money laundering, arms dealing? Nothing that dramatic. Mostly I help people move money they don't want traced. Sometimes I help them hide assets from partners or governments, or both. Sometimes I broker deals between parties who can't meet in public. It's boring, paperwork-heavy work that occasionally pisses off the wrong person. And this time? This time, I think someone wants leverage. They think if they can find out who you are, where you came from, they can use you to pressure me into something. He sipped his coffee. They're wrong, but they don't know that yet. How are they wrong? Because I don't respond to pressure. I respond to problems by eliminating them. The certainty in his voice should have terrified her. Instead, she felt oddly safe. Like whatever was coming, he'd handle it the same way he'd handled everything else, efficiently and without apology. They ate dinner in the kitchen. Mrs. Chen's cooking was magic as always, turning simple ingredients into something that made the day's chaos feel manageable. Afterward, Adrian disappeared into what was left of his study to make phone calls that Lila didn't try to overhear. She went to her room, tried to read one of the library books, gave up after reading the same page 4 times without retaining a word. The house felt different now. Violated. Like the safety she'd been building here was thinner than she'd thought. Around 11, someone knocked on her door. It's me, Adrian said from the hallway. She opened it. He was still dressed, still looked wired like sleep wasn't happening anytime soon. Just checking you're okay, he said. I'm okay. Good. He turned to leave. Adrian? He looked back. Can you stay? Just for a while. I can't. The words tangled up. I keep hearing noises. He hesitated. Lila, not like that. I just mean stay in the room. Talk to me or don't talk. I don't care. I just need to know someone's here. Understanding crossed his face. Okay, yeah, I can do that. He pulled the armchair closer to the bed, sat down like he'd done this before. Maybe he had. Maybe he knew what it felt like to need another person's presence just to believe you were safe. They sat in silence for a while. Then Lila said, Tell me something about you. Something real. Like what? I don't know. Something you don't tell people. Adrian was quiet long enough that she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I have a daughter. She's 9. Lives with her mother in Seattle. I haven't seen her in 4 years. Lila sat up. Why not? Because her mother is right. I'm not safe to be around. My work, my life, the people I deal with. A kid doesn't need that. He stared at something she couldn't see. Her name's Emma. She likes horses and hates math and wants to be a veterinarian. I know this because her mother sends me updates twice a year. Pictures I'm not supposed to respond to. But you want to. Every time. His voice cracked slightly. But wanting something doesn't make it the right thing to do. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, well, We all make choices we have to live with. He looked at her. Your turn. Tell me something real. Lila thought about it. I wanted to be a teacher before Marcus. I was in grad school for education, student teaching at a middle school, actually happy. Then I met him at a friend's party, and he was charming and successful and seemed like he had his life together. 2 months later, I dropped out of the program because he said teaching didn't pay enough and I should focus on supporting his career instead. Do you regret it? I regret him. Not giving up teaching. I can go back to that. I regret believing someone who said he loved me and then spent 4 years proving he didn't know what that word meant. They talked until past midnight about regrets and choices and the futures they'd imagined before life got complicated. Adrian told her about growing up with a father who ruled through fear, about leaving home at 17 with nothing but a backpack and anger. Lila told him about her parents' death, about the loneliness that made Marcus's attention feel like rescue. Eventually, her words started slurring with exhaustion. Adrian stood to leave. Thank you, she said, for staying. Anytime. He paused at the door. Lila, what happened today, the break-in? That's on me to fix. Not you. You're safe here. I meant that when I said it, and I still mean it. Okay. After he left, she lay in the dark and tried to process everything. The city trip, the library, the violation of the break-in, the conversation that had stripped away pretense. She was living in a crime boss's house, falling into something that looked like trust with a man who carried a gun and made people nervous, and somehow that felt safer than 4 years in a suburban apartment with a husband who'd promised to love her. The irony wasn't lost on her. Sunday morning brought James and 2 other men Lila hadn't seen before, installing new security cameras and upgrading locks. Adrian was on the phone for most of the day, speaking in tones that ranged from conversational to threatening. By evening, he'd apparently identified who'd ordered the break-in, someone named Castellano, who thought Adrian had documents that could damage him. Do you? Lila asked. Have documents? Not anymore. I gave them to the FBI 2 months ago. Adrian smiled, sharp and cold. Castellano's going to figure that out the hard way. Monday brought the divorce papers back, signed by Marcus. His signature was angry, pressing too hard into the paper, but it was there. Lila held the document and felt nothing, just relief that this part was finally done. He signed, she told Dr. Chen during their afternoon session. How does that feel? Like closing a door I should have closed years ago. That's good. That's progress. Dr. Chen made a note. Are you ready to talk about what comes next? Next? After this? After the estate? After healing? What do you want your life to look like? The question was too big. Lila pushed it away. But it came back during dinner, during her evening walk around the grounds, during the hours she lay awake thinking about futures she could barely imagine. What did she want? Not Marcus, not ever again. Not hiding, not anymore. But beyond that, the shape of things was still blurry. Teach again, maybe. Go back to school. Find her own place eventually, though the thought of leaving the estate's safety made her chest tight. And Adrian. There was Adrian, who'd saved her and asked for nothing, who sat with her in the dark when she couldn't sleep, who looked at her like she was worth the trouble of protecting. That was complicated in ways she wasn't ready to examine. Tuesday night, she found him in the library, reading something that looked dense and legal. Can I ask you a question? She said. He set down his book. When has that ever stopped you? What happens when I'm healed? When I don't need therapy twice a week and I can sleep through the night and I'm not jumping at shadows? What do you want to happen? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. Adrian closed his book completely, gave her his full attention. You can stay here as long as you want, weeks, months, years, or you can leave tomorrow and I'll set you up with money and housing and security and you'll never have to see me again. Your choice. Always your choice. What if I don't know what I want yet? Then you stay until you figure it out. He stood, walked to where she was hovering in the doorway. Lila, I'm not your husband. I'm not going to make decisions for you or tell you what you're allowed to want. You get to choose your own life now. That's the whole point. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that someone could offer safety without conditions, space without expecting something in return. Okay, she said quietly. He stepped closer, not touching, just close enough that she could see the scar through his eyebrow, the gray at his temples, the exhaustion he hid behind control. You're allowed to want things, he said. Even if they scare you, especially if they scare you. What if what I want is impossible? Nothing's impossible, just harder than the alternative. They stood there in the doorway, the library quiet behind him, her heart beating too fast for a conversation that was supposed to be simple. Then his phone rang. He answered it, his expression shifting from neutral to cold in seconds. When? He said into the phone. Then, I'll handle it. He hung up, looked at Lila. Marcus violated the restraining order. He's at the gate. Fear spiked through her, immediate and visceral. What? He showed up 10 minutes ago, drunk, screaming about wanting to talk to you. Security's holding him, but he's not leaving. Adrian was already moving toward the door. Stay here. Lock yourself in if you want. I'll deal with this. No. The word came out stronger than she'd expected. No. I want to be there. Lila. He doesn't get to make me hide anymore. I want to be there. Adrian studied her face, weighing her resolve. Okay. But you stay in the car. You don't engage with him. And if I tell you to leave, you leave. Agreed? Agreed. They drove to the gate in tense silence. Through the windshield, Lila could see Marcus's car parked sideways across the drive, could see him pacing in the headlights, could hear him yelling something she couldn't make out yet. James pulled up close enough that the headlights illuminated Marcus fully. He looked terrible, unshaven, clothes wrinkled, eyes wild with whatever combination of alcohol and desperation had driven him here. Adrian got out. Lila stayed in the car like she'd promised, but she rolled down the window so she could hear. Marcus Carter, Adrian said, his voice carrying in the quiet night, you're violating a court order just by being here. I don't give a shit about court orders. Marcus swayed slightly. I want my wife. She's not your wife anymore. Divorce was finalized yesterday. Fuck the divorce. That's my wife. She belongs to me. She belongs to herself, and she's told you she doesn't want to see you. You need to leave. Not until she tells me herself. Marcus's eyes found the SUV, found Lila in the back seat. Lila, get out here. Tell this asshole to let you go. Lila's hand was on the door handle before she realized she was moving. Adrian caught her eye through the windshield, shook his head slightly. Wait. She's not talking to you, Adrian said. She's not now. She's not ever. You need to accept that and move on. Move on, Marcus laughed, bitter and sharp. She called you, from our bathroom, while I was trying to have a conversation with her. You broke into my home, assaulted me, kidnapped my wife. I removed her from a dangerous situation at her request. That's not kidnapping. That's helping. Helping, Marcus spat the word. You think you're helping? You think you're better than me? You're a fucking criminal. Everyone knows what you are, what you do. And yet she chose to call me instead of staying with you. What does that tell you? The question hung in the air. Marcus's face went red, his hands clenching into fists. She's confused. You've manipulated her, turned her against me. He took a step forward. Security moved to block him. Lila, baby, come home, we can fix this. And Lila realized she was done hiding. She opened the car door. Adrian's expression shifted the moment her feet hit the pavement, something between frustration and resignation flickering across his face. He didn't try to stop her, just positioned himself slightly ahead, a barrier she could choose to step around or stay behind. Lila walked forward until she was close enough to see Marcus clearly, close enough to smell the bourbon on his breath, to see the desperation in his bloodshot eyes, to recognize the man who'd broken her arm and told her it was her fault for making him angry. Lila. His voice cracked. Baby, please, let's just talk. That's all I want. Just talk. She'd imagined this moment 100 times in the past 3 weeks. Imagined what she'd say, how she'd say it, whether she'd cry or scream or fall apart. But standing here now, looking at the man who'd controlled 4 years of her life, she felt mostly tired. We have nothing to talk about, she said. Don't say that. We're married. We took vows. We're divorced. As of yesterday, you signed the papers. Because I had to. Because Marcus jabbed a finger at Adrian. He destroyed everything. My job, my reputation, my life. He turned everyone against me. You did that yourself, Lila said. Every time you hit me, every time you told me I was worthless, every time you made me afraid to exist in my own home, you destroyed your own life, Marcus. Not him. You. I never hit you. The lie came out automatic, practiced. We had fights. Normal couple fights. You're exaggerating, making me sound like some kind of monster. Lila pulled up her sleeve, showing the cast that covered her broken arm. This is exaggerating? That was an accident. You know it was. You fell. You grabbed my wrist and twisted until it snapped. I heard it break. Her voice stayed steady, clear. And that was just the last time. There were dozens of other times before that. Times I wore long sleeves in summer to hide bruises. Times I lied to doctors about how I got hurt. Times I convinced myself it was my fault because you said it was. Marcus's face went through several expressions. Denial, anger, something that might have been shame if he was capable of it. I was stressed. Work was hard. You weren't helping. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did. Over and over. And you never stopped. Because I love you. He took a step forward. Security moved to intercept, but Adrian held up a hand, letting this play out. I love you, Lila. I know I'm not perfect. I know I have problems, but I love you. Doesn't that count for something? The question sat between them. Once upon a time, it would have. Once upon a time, she'd believed that love meant accepting someone at their worst, meant staying through the bad times, meant sacrifice and forgiveness, and trying harder to be what they needed. Now she knew better. No, she said simply. It doesn't count for anything. Because whatever you think love is, it's not this. Love doesn't leave bruises. Love doesn't make someone afraid to speak. Love doesn't break someone down until they don't recognize themselves anymore. You don't mean that. He's brainwashed you. Stop. Lila cut him off. Stop blaming him. Stop blaming anyone but yourself. I called Adrian because I was locked in a bathroom with a broken arm, and you were breaking down the door, and I thought you were going to kill me. I called him because I was out of options, and out of time, and out of hope, and he came. That's all this is. So what, you're with him now? Marcus's voice turned ugly. That's what this is? You left me for him? I left you for me, because staying meant dying. Slowly or quickly, didn't matter. I was dying with you. The words hit harder than she'd intended. Marcus flinched like she'd slapped him. I gave you everything, he said, quieter now. A home, money. Everything you have is because of me. Everything I have is in spite of you. Lila felt tears building but pushed them back. And I don't want anything from you except to be left alone. No more calls, no more texts, no more showing up at places you know I'll be. It's over, Marcus. Accept it and move on. And if I don't? The threat was implicit, hanging in the air between them. Adrian moved then, casual but deliberate, putting himself fully between Marcus and Lila. Then you'll have a conversation with me that you won't enjoy. Your choice. Marcus looked at him, at the security flanking them, at the cameras recording everything, and whatever calculation he was making came up short. He was drunk and desperate, but not stupid enough to push further. This isn't over, he said, but the conviction was gone from his voice. Yeah, it is, Adrian's tone was final. You violated a restraining order tonight. That's jail time if Lila wants to press charges. She's being generous by letting you walk away. Don't make her regret it. Marcus's eyes found Lila one more time. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was staying as long as I did. Security escorted him back to his car, made sure he got in, watched him drive away with one of their vehicles following to ensure he actually left the area. Adrian waited until the taillights disappeared before turning to Lila. You okay? She was shaking, hadn't noticed it until now, but her whole body was trembling like she'd been standing in the cold too long. I think so. Come on, let's get you inside. Back at the house, Mrs. Chen had tea waiting like she'd known exactly when they'd return and what would be needed. Lila sat in the kitchen and wrapped her hands around the mug, trying to stop the shaking. You did good, Adrian said, sitting across from her, standing up to him. That took guts. I don't feel brave. I feel like I'm going to throw up. That's normal. Adrenaline crash. He sipped his own tea. The important part is you said what you needed to say. He heard you. And if he's smart, he'll stay gone. And if he's not smart, then I handle it in ways that don't involve you being polite. The certainty in his voice should have bothered her, should have made her question what kind of man she was trusting her safety to. But all she felt was relief that someone was willing to stand between her and the thing that scared her. She went to bed an hour later, exhausted in a way that went bone deep. But sleep didn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face, heard his voice saying, "I love you," like those words could erase 4 years of hurt. Around 2 a.m., she gave up and went downstairs. Adrian was in the study again because apparently he never slept. He looked up when she appeared in the doorway. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Keep replaying it. What I said, what I should have said differently." "You said it perfectly." He closed his laptop. "Come here." She sat in the chair across from his desk. The study had been cleaned up from the break-in, everything back in its place like the violation had never happened. "Second-guessing yourself is normal," Adrian said. "You confronted the person who hurt you. Your brain's trying to process that. Give it time." "How much time?" "However long it takes." He leaned back. "There's no timeline for healing, no chart that says you should be over it by now. Some days will be good. Some days you'll feel like you're right back in that bathroom. Both are okay." "You sound like Dr. Chen." "I've had enough therapy to know the script." He smiled slightly. "Doesn't make it less true." They sat in silence for a while. Then Lila said, "Thank you, for tonight, for letting me face him. You didn't need my permission. I needed you to not stop me. There's a difference." Adrian studied her face, something unreadable in his expression. "You're stronger than you think." "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." He stood. "Come on, I'll walk you back to your room." "I'm not a child." "I know, but the house is dark and you're upset and I'm going that direction anyway." They walked through quiet hallways, past rooms Lila still hadn't explored, up the stairs to the east wing. At her door, Adrian paused. "If you need anything," he said, "I'm 2 doors down. Don't hesitate." "Okay?" She almost made it inside before turning back. "Adrian?" He stopped, looked back. "Why are you doing all this? Really, not the rehearsed answer about throwing ropes to drowning people. The real reason." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Because someone should have done it for my mother, and nobody did. Because I have the power to help, and it costs me nothing to use it. Because you called, and I can't unknow that you needed help." He paused. "Because you deserve better than what you got." "That's not an answer either." "It's the closest you're getting tonight." But his voice was softer when he said it. He left her standing in her doorway, and Lila went inside feeling more settled than she had any right to feel. The next few days passed in a rhythm that was starting to feel normal. Therapy with Dr. Chen, where they worked through trauma and triggers and the complicated mess of rebuilding identity. Meals with Adrian, where they talked about everything and nothing. Walks around the grounds with James trailing at a respectful distance. Library trips, books, coffee, small pieces of a life that belonged to her. Marcus sent flowers on Thursday. 2 dozen roses with a card that read, "I'm sorry. Let me make this right." Lila threw them away without a second thought. He tried calling from new numbers. She blocked them all. By Friday, Adrian's people reported that Marcus had been seen at a bar downtown, drunk and angry, telling anyone who'd listen about his kidnapped wife and the criminal who'd stolen her. "He's spiraling," Adrian said over dinner. "Getting reckless." "Is that dangerous?" "For him, yes. For you, no. I've got people watching him. If he tries anything, we'll know before he gets close." Saturday brought rain, the kind that turned the estate grounds into something from a Gothic novel. Lila spent the afternoon in the library reading a book about women who'd survived impossible things when Mrs. Chen appeared with a package. "This came for you," she said. The box was small, wrapped in brown paper with no return address. Lila's name was written in handwriting she didn't recognize. "Should I open it?" she asked. "Let me get James first." James examined the package with professional paranoia, scanned it for whatever security people scanned packages for, then nodded that it was safe. Lila opened it carefully. Inside was a burner phone and a note written in Marcus's handwriting. "We need to talk, please. I'm getting help. I want to make things right. Call me." She handed it to Adrian without a word. He read the note, his jaw tightening. "He's persistent. He's desperate. Same thing, different packaging." Adrian set the phone on his desk. "You want to respond?" "No, I have nothing to say to him." "Good. Because responding gives him hope, and hope makes desperate men do stupid things. The phone sat on Adrian's desk for 2 days like a small bomb waiting to detonate. On Monday, it rang. Adrian answered it on speaker. "Hello, Marcus," he said. "I want to talk to my wife." "She's not your wife, and she doesn't want to talk to you. Let her tell me that herself." "She already did. At the gate. Remember? Or were you too drunk to process it?" Static on the line, heavy breathing. Then, "You think you've won. You think because you've got money and connections, you can just take what's mine. She was never yours. You just convinced her she was. I loved her. You loved owning her. There's a difference." Adrian's voice went cold. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop calling, stop sending flowers, stop leaving packages. You're going to accept that she's gone and move on with whatever's left of your life. And if you don't, I'm going to make the past few weeks look like mercy." "You threatening me?" "I'm promising you." Adrian hung up. Lila, who'd been listening from the doorway, said, "Will that work?" "No." But it needed to be said. He turned to face her. He's not going to stop, not until we make him. How do we make him? We take away everything he has left to lose. That conversation happened in his study on a Monday evening. By Tuesday morning, Adrian had assembled a file that detailed every mistake Marcus had made in the past 4 years. The embezzling, the affair, the bar fights he'd talked his way out of, the DUI he'd paid to disappear, a pattern of behavior that painted a picture of someone unstable and dangerous. "I can leak this to the right people," Adrian said. "His former employer, the police, the media if necessary. By the end of the week, he'll be unemployable in this city, probably facing charges for the financial crimes. He'll have too many problems of his own to worry about bothering you." Lila looked at the file, thought about Marcus losing everything, thought about how that would feel, knowing she'd been the catalyst for his complete destruction. "Do it," she said. Adrian made the calls. By Wednesday, Marcus was under investigation for embezzlement. By Thursday, someone had posted security footage of him assaulting a bartender online, and it was going viral. By Friday, he'd been arrested for the DUI he'd thought was buried. Lila watched it happen from the safety of the estate, feeling detached from the chaos unfolding in Marcus's life. Dr. Chen asked her how she felt about it during their session. "I don't feel anything," Lila admitted. "Should I?" "There's no should, only what you actually feel. I keep thinking I should feel guilty or satisfied, something, but mostly I just feel relieved, like a weight I didn't know I was carrying finally lifted. That's healthy. You're not responsible for his choices or their consequences. He built this house of cards. You just stopped holding it up." That made sense in a way Lila needed it to make sense. The weekend brought unexpected visitors. A woman in her 30s appeared at the estate gate Saturday morning asking for Adrian. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, and she claimed to be Marcus's sister. Adrian met her in the main sitting room, with Lila present but positioned where she could leave if she needed to. Sarah looked tired, wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. She sat on the edge of the sofa like she might bolt at any moment. "I'm not here to defend him," she said immediately. "Marcus is my brother, but I'm not blind to what he is." "Then why are you here?" Adrian asked. "Because he's in jail. Because his life is falling apart. And because someone needs to tell you the truth about what you're dealing with." Sarah looked at Lila. "He's not going to stop, ever. He's obsessed with you. Has been since you left. He talks about you constantly, about getting you back, about making the people who helped you pay." "He's in jail," Lila said. "He can't do anything from jail. He'll make bail by Monday. His parents are posting it. And the first thing he'll do when he gets out is come after you." Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. "I've watched him do this before. In college, there was a girl. He dated her for 6 months. She broke up with him, and he stalked her for a year, followed her, called her, showed up at her work. She had to transfer schools to get away from him." "Why are you telling us this?" Adrian asked. "Because that girl ended up in the hospital. Marcus put her there, broke her jaw, 3 ribs, fractured her skull. He claimed she attacked him first, and his parents paid for lawyers who made it go away. But I know what happened. I know what he's capable of when he doesn't get what he wants." The room went very quiet. "Did he ever face charges?" Adrian asked. "No. Like I said, his parents made it disappear. They've been cleaning up his messes his whole life." Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolled through something, held it up. "This is her, the girl from college. Her name was Jennifer. The photo showed a young woman with her face swollen and bruised, eyes blackened, jaw visibly misaligned. It looked recent, despite being taken years ago. Lila felt sick. "I thought you should know what you're dealing with," Sarah said. "Marcus doesn't let go. He doesn't move on. And if you think restraining orders or divorce papers or even jail time will stop him, you're wrong. The only thing that stops Marcus is getting what he wants or being made unable to continue." "Why tell us instead of warning him off yourself?" Adrian asked. "Because I tried 5 times in the past 3 weeks. He won't listen to me. Says I don't understand that you've poisoned Lila against him, that he just needs to make her see reason." Sarah stood. "I'm telling you this because I don't want to see another woman in the hospital, or worse. And I think you're the only person who can actually stop him." After she left, Lila and Adrian sat in silence. "He put someone in the hospital," Lila finally said. "Yeah. And his parents covered it up. Money does that." Adrian was already on his phone, texting someone. "I'll find Jennifer, see if she'll talk to us." "Why?" "Because if she'll testify, we can use it. Build a case that shows a pattern. Make it so Marcus can't just walk away from this." "Will she talk? After all this time?" "I don't know, but I'm going to ask." Jennifer Wilson was 31, living in Portland, working as a graphic designer for a tech company. Adrian's people found her in less than 24 hours. She agreed to a phone call, hesitant but willing. Lila listened while Adrian put the call on speaker. "I don't know what I can tell you that will help," Jennifer said, her voice crackling over the line. "It was 8 years ago. There's no evidence except medical records, and I never pressed charges." "Did he do to you what his sister described?" Adrian asked. Silence. Then, "Yes, and worse. Things I don't talk about because saying them out loud makes me feel like I'm back there, in that relationship, letting him convince me I deserved it." "You didn't deserve it," Lila said quietly. "I know that now. Took years of therapy to believe it." Jennifer's voice cracked slightly. "Is he doing it again? To someone else?" "He was. She got out, but he's not accepting it." "He never does. That's the problem with guys like Marcus. They think women are property, things they own. And when you try to leave, they don't see a person making a choice. They see theft." The conversation lasted 30 minutes. Jennifer agreed to write a statement detailing what Marcus had done, agreed to have her medical records released, agreed to testify if it came to that. She didn't want anyone else to go through what she'd gone through. After the call ended, Lila sat with the weight of it. 2 women, probably more that they hadn't found yet. A pattern of violence that Marcus's family had enabled and hidden. "We need to make sure he can't hurt anyone else," she said. "Already working on it." Adrian had his laptop open, typing rapidly. "Jennifer's statement combined with what happened to you, plus the restraining order violations. We can build a case for a protective order that actually has teeth. Maybe get him committed for psychiatric evaluation. At minimum, put him on a registry." "Will any of that stop him?" "Legally? Maybe. In reality?" Adrian looked up from his screen. "Probably not. Men like Marcus don't stop because the law tells them to." "Then what stops them?" Adrian's expression went dark. "Fear. Real, bone-deep fear that continuing means consequences worse than giving up." Lila understood what he was offering, the implied threat, the promise of protection that went beyond legal remedies. "I don't want you to kill him," she said. "I'm not going to kill him. Killing him makes you a victim forever, defined by his death instead of your survival. But I can make him afraid, make him understand that coming after you means facing things he can't buy, or charm, or threaten his way out of." "How?" "Let me handle the details. You just need to decide if you're okay with me handling them." She thought about it. About Marcus in jail, about him making bail, about him coming after her the way he'd gone after Jennifer. Thought about living the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, waiting for him to show up and finish what he'd started. "Do it," she said. "Whatever you need to do. Just make him stop." Adrian made more calls. People with names like Victor and Chen and Castellano, the same Castellano who'd ordered the break-in, apparently now doing business with Adrian because that's how this world worked. Deals and leverage and mutual benefit. By Sunday evening, Adrian had assembled a plan. "Marcus makes bail Monday morning," he said. "He'll go home, probably drink, probably call you even though he shouldn't. Tuesday, he'll get a visitor. Someone who'll explain very clearly what happens if he continues bothering you. Wednesday, he'll receive documentation of every illegal thing he's ever done, every corner his parents cut to protect him, every dollar they paid to make problems disappear. And he'll be told that if he comes within a mile of you, all of it goes public. His parents go down with him. His family name gets destroyed. Everything he's ever had gets taken away. Tis, you think that'll work? I think it'll make him choose between his obsession with you and protecting his family's legacy. And Marcus is selfish, but he's not suicidal. He'll choose himself over you if the cost gets high enough. And if he doesn't, then we escalate. But I don't think we'll need to. Monday came. Marcus made bail exactly as predicted. By Monday night, Adrian's people reported he'd gone home, ordered takeout, and spent 3 hours on the phone with his parents arguing about money. Tuesday morning, a man named Victor showed up at Marcus's apartment. Lila didn't ask what was said during that conversation, didn't want to know the details of how fear was delivered. Tuesday evening, Marcus received a package containing documentation of his entire criminal history. The real version, not the sanitized one his parents had created. Financial records, police reports that had been buried, witness statements from people who'd been paid to forget. Wednesday, Marcus's phone rang. Adrian answered it on speaker with Lila in the room. "What do you want?" Marcus's voice was different now, smaller, scared. "I want you to leave Lila Carter alone, permanently, completely. No calls, no visits, no messages through third parties. You act like she doesn't exist. And if I do that, then the documentation stays private. Your parents keep their reputation. Your family name stays intact. You get to rebuild whatever life you can manage without destroying everyone around you. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a choice. Take it or don't. But understand that if you choose wrong, there's no second chance. No lawyer can save you from this. No amount of money makes it go away. You come after her again, and everything burns." Silence on the line, long enough that Lila thought he'd hung up. Then, "Fine. She's not worth it anyway." The word should have hurt, should have made her angry or sad or something. Instead, she just felt tired. "Good choice," Adrian said, and hung up. "Is it over?" Lila asked. "Maybe. Probably. We'll see." He stood, stretched. "We'll keep watching him for a while, make sure he stays gone. But yeah, I think he's done." Lila wanted to believe it, wanted to trust that Marcus had finally learned his lesson, that fear had accomplished what love and law couldn't. But part of her knew better, knew that men like Marcus didn't change. They just got better at hiding. That night she couldn't sleep again, kept replaying everything that had led to this moment. The bathroom, the call, the weeks of healing, the confrontation at the gate. Marcus's voice saying she wasn't worth it. Around 3 a.m., she found herself standing outside Adrian's door. She knocked before she could second-guess it. "Come in." He was still dressed, sitting in an armchair reading something on his tablet. He didn't look surprised to see her. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "I keep thinking it's not really over, that he's going to come back." "He might. People surprise you sometimes." Adrian set down the tablet. "But if he does, we handle it. Same as we've handled everything else." "Why are you so calm about this?" "Because panic doesn't solve problems. Action does." He gestured to the other chair. "Sit. Talk to me." She sat. They talked for hours about fear and survival, and the impossibility of knowing when you're truly safe. Adrian told her about his daughter again, about how he sent her birthday cards every year that her mother probably threw away. Lila told him about her parents, about the car accident that had killed them, about how meeting Marcus 3 months later had felt like finding someone to fill the emptiness their death had left. "You were grieving," Adrian said, "and he took advantage of that." "I should have known better." "You were 22. Nobody knows better at 22. The conversation drifted into easier territory. Books they'd read as kids, movies they'd loved, plans for futures that felt more possible now than they had weeks ago. When the sun started rising, Lila realized she'd spent the entire night in Adrian's room and hadn't once felt uncomfortable or afraid. "I should go," she said. "Let you get some sleep." "I don't sleep much." "Neither do I, apparently." She stood to leave. At the door, she paused. "Thank you," she said, "for everything. For coming when I called. For giving me space to heal. For making Marcus stop. For just being here." Adrian looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You don't need to thank me. I know. I'm doing it anyway. She went back to her room, lay down on her bed, and fell asleep within minutes. When she woke up, it was afternoon and Mrs. Chen was knocking on her door with lunch and news that Dr. Chen wanted to move their sessions to once a week instead of twice. She thinks you're ready, Mrs. Chen said. Leela thought about it, about how sleeping through the night was starting to happen more often, about how the sound of doors slamming didn't make her freeze anymore, about how she'd looked in the mirror that morning and recognized the person staring back. Yeah, she said. I think I am. The weeks that followed felt like learning to breathe in a different atmosphere. Everything was the same estate, same routine, same people. But Lila moved through it differently now. Less like a guest waiting for permission to stay, more like someone who'd earned her place by surviving what should have broken her. Marcus stayed gone. Adrian's people reported he'd moved in with his parents, taken a job in his father's company, doing something menial that probably humiliated him, stopped drinking quite so much. He didn't call. Didn't send flowers or letters or burner phones. From the outside, it looked like he'd finally accepted defeat. Lila didn't trust it completely. Probably never would. But she stopped checking over her shoulder every 5 minutes, stopped flinching at unexpected sounds, stopped living like the next moment might bring violence. Dr. Chen noticed during their weekly session. You're different, she said, setting down her notes. Calmer, more present. I feel different. Like I'm actually here instead of just surviving being here. That's significant progress. How are you sleeping? Better. Most nights I make it till morning without waking up. And the nightmares? Still there, but less frequent, less vivid. Lila picked at a thread on the armchair. Sometimes I dream about the bathroom, about Marcus breaking down the door. But now in the dream, I'm not just sitting there terrified. I'm fighting back. Or I'm already gone before he gets in. Your brain is rewriting the narrative, giving you agency in a situation where you had none. That's healthy. They talked about next steps. About Lila maybe getting her own place eventually, though not yet. About going back to school, finishing that education degree she'd abandoned. About rebuilding connections with her sister, who'd reached out after seeing Marcus's arrest in the local news. She apologized, Lila said. Said she should have pushed harder when I stopped returning her calls. Said she knew something was wrong, but didn't want to interfere in my marriage. How did that feel? Sad? Angry? Relieved? Lila shrugged. All of it at once. She's my sister. I missed her. But she wasn't there when I needed her, and I don't know if I can just forget that. You don't have to forget it. You just have to decide if you can forgive it. That was the hard part. Figuring out what forgiveness looked like when someone had failed you by choosing comfort over confrontation. Lila wasn't sure yet, but she'd agreed to coffee with her sister next week, neutral territory, just to see if the relationship could be salvaged. March arrived with unseasonably warm weather that turned the estate grounds into something from a painting. Lila started spending mornings outside, walking the paths she'd been too afraid to explore those first weeks. James still followed at a distance, but it felt less like surveillance now and more like companionship. She'd started helping Mrs. Chen in the kitchen too, learning to cook things that required actual skill instead of just following packaged directions. Homemade pasta, sauces that took hours to develop flavor, bread that needed kneading, and patience and faith that it would rise. You're good at this, Mrs. Chen said one afternoon, watching Lila work dough with flour-covered hands. I used to cook, before, but Marcus had opinions about everything I made, so eventually I just stopped trying. And now? Now I'm cooking for myself. Turns out it's more enjoyable when you're not waiting for someone to criticize it. They worked in comfortable silence, the kitchen warm with oven heat and the smell of rising dough. Lila found she liked the rhythm of it, the way cooking required attention but didn't demand perfection. You could adjust as you went, taste and correct, make something good even if it wasn't exactly what you'd planned. Adrian appeared in the doorway around 4, looking tired in a way he usually hid better. Smells good, he said. Focaccia, Lila told him, should be ready in about 20 minutes. You're becoming domestic. I'm becoming functional. There's a difference. She wiped her hands on a towel. You look exhausted. Bad day? Long day, lot of moving pieces. He poured himself coffee from the pot Mrs. Chen always kept fresh. Nothing for you to worry about. But Lila had learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw tightened when he was managing problems he didn't want to discuss. Marcus? No, actually, he's been quiet. This is something else entirely. Adrian sipped his coffee, grimaced like it wasn't strong enough. Business complications. Someone trying to leverage something they shouldn't. It'll resolve itself. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be. It's honest. He set down the mug. I need to make some calls. Let me know when the bread's ready. He disappeared into his study. Mrs. Chen gave Lila a look that said this was normal, nothing to panic about, just the reality of the life Adrian lived. The focaccia came out perfect, golden brown with olive oil pooling in the dimples, rosemary fragrant enough to fill the house. Lila cut a piece and brought it to Adrian's study, knocked quietly. Come in. He was on the phone speaking in what sounded like Italian, but he gestured for her to enter. She set the plate on his desk and turned to leave. Wait, he said, covering the phone. Stay. This'll just be a minute. She sat in the armchair she'd occupied so many times before, listening to him negotiate something in a language she didn't understand. His tone shifted between diplomatic and threatening so smoothly she couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. When he finally hung up, he looked at the focaccia like he'd forgotten what food was. Eat, Lila said. You look like you haven't eaten all day. I haven't. He took a bite, closed his eyes. This is really good. Mrs. Chen's recipe, I just followed directions. Still counts. He ate another piece. How was your session with Dr. Chen today? Good. She thinks I'm making progress. You are. Anyone can see that. Can they? Because sometimes I still feel like I'm barely holding it together. Adrian leaned back in his chair, studying her. You know what I see when I look at you now compared to that first night? What? Someone who stopped apologizing for existing. Someone who takes up space without asking permission first. Someone who's rebuilding herself from scratch and doing a damn good job of it. He paused. That's not barely holding it together. That's actually being together in ways most people never manage. The compliment settled somewhere in her chest, warm and unexpected. Thank you, she said quietly. I'm just stating facts. They sat in silence while he finished the bread. Then he said, I need to tell you something. The tone shift made Lila's stomach drop. What? Marcus contacted my lawyer yesterday. Wants to negotiate a settlement. A settlement for what? We're already divorced. For damages. Emotional distress. Loss of reputation. He's claiming I destroyed his life without cause. Adrian said this like it was absurd, which it was. His parents are backing him. They've hired a firm that specializes in going after people like me. Can he do that? Can he actually sue you? He can try, won't go anywhere, there's no case, but it'll be annoying and expensive and public. Which is the point. He's trying to make this costly enough that I'll pay him to go away. Lila felt anger rise sharp and hot. After everything he did, after putting me in the hospital, after violating the restraining order, after all of it, he thinks he deserves money? He thinks he deserves revenge. Money's just the delivery method. Adrian's expression was unreadable. I wanted you to know before it becomes a thing. There'll probably be media coverage. Your name might come up. I'll do everything I can to keep you out of it, but I can't guarantee privacy. I don't care about privacy. I care about him trying to hurt you because you helped me. He's not going to hurt me. He's going to waste his parents' money on lawyers who will eventually explain reality to them. Adrian stood, walked to the window. But you should know what you're signing up for if you stay here. This is my life. Complications and lawsuits and people trying to leverage my choices against me. It doesn't stop. Are you asking me to leave? I'm asking if you want to, before it gets messier. Lila thought about it, about the life she'd built here over the past 2 months. The safety, the healing, the quiet routines that had given her back pieces of herself she'd thought were gone forever. Thought about Adrian, who'd saved her without asking for anything, who sat with her in the dark when she couldn't sleep, who treated her recovery like it mattered. No, she said. I don't want to leave. Even if it means dealing with Marcus trying to make trouble? Especially then, because leaving now means he wins. Means he gets to chase me away from the first place I felt safe in 4 years. She stood, walked to where Adrian was standing. I'm not running anymore. From him or from anything else. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Okay, then we fight it together. The lawsuit was filed the following week. Marcus Carter versus Adrian Voss, claiming wrongful interference, defamation, and about 6 other things that boiled down to wounded pride dressed up in legal language. His parents had apparently mortgaged something to afford the lawyers, which showed how seriously they were taking this. Adrian's response was swift and brutal. His legal team filed counterclaims for harassment, violation of restraining orders, and brought Jennifer Wilson's testimony into the record. They documented every call, every flower delivery, every violation Marcus had committed since Lila left. They painted a picture of a dangerous, obsessive man whose family had enabled his violence for years. The media picked it up because of course they did. Local crime boss sued by former executive became the headline, with Lila mentioned as the woman at the center of it all. Her name was out there now, attached to words like domestic violence and rescue and controversial relationship. Her phone started ringing, reporters wanting interviews, old acquaintances suddenly curious about her life. Even her sister called, concerned about the attention. "I'm fine," Lila told her during their coffee date that had been postponed twice because of the media circus. "It's uncomfortable, but I'm fine." Her sister, Rachel, who looked so much like their mother it hurt, stirred sugar into her latte with shaking hands. "I should have been there. When you were with him. I should have pushed harder." "Probably, but you weren't, and I survived anyway." Lila wasn't trying to be cruel, just honest. "I'm not saying I forgive you yet, but I'm willing to try rebuilding this. If you are." "I am. Absolutely." Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I missed you. I missed my sister." "I missed you too." They talked for 2 hours. About their parents. About the years with Marcus that Rachel had only seen the edited version of. About what came next. It wasn't perfect. Too much damage had been done for perfect. But it was a start. The lawsuit dragged on for weeks, generating headlines and court filings and legal maneuvering that Lila didn't fully understand. Adrian seemed unbothered by it, treating the whole thing like a minor annoyance rather than a serious threat. "Marcus's lawyers filed a motion to compel you to testify," he told her one evening over dinner. Lila's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Testify about what?" "About our relationship. About whether I coerced you into leaving him. About whether you're here against your will." Adrian said this like it was ridiculous. Standard intimidation tactics. Make you uncomfortable enough that I'll settle to protect you. "I'll testify. I'll tell them exactly what happened. You don't have to. My lawyers can block it." "I want to. Let Marcus hear me say in court what I wouldn't say to his face for 4 years. Lila set down her fork. "Let him hear that leaving him was the best decision I ever made." Adrian smiled, rare and genuine. "Okay, then we prepare you to testify." The preparation was intense. Adrian's lawyers, a woman named Patricia Chen, who was no relation to either of the other Chens but just as competent, drilled Lila on questions for hours. What was your relationship with Marcus like? When did the abuse start? Why didn't you leave sooner? What is your relationship with Mr. Voss? That last question was the hardest to answer. "We're friends," Lila said during a practice session. Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Just friends?" "I don't know what else to call it. He helped me, gave me a place to stay. We talk. We have dinner together. What do you call that?" "Most people would call that a relationship." "It's not. We're not." Lila struggled for words. "It's not like that." "Okay. But Marcus's lawyers will try to make it sound like that. Like Adrian rescued you to have a relationship with you. Like there was an ulterior motive." Patricia leaned forward. "You need to be ready for them to imply things, to suggest things, to make your friendship sound like something it's not. Let them. I know the truth." But that night, lying in bed trying to sleep, Lila examined the truth honestly. What was her relationship with Adrian? He'd saved her, yes, given her shelter and safety and space to heal, but somewhere along the way, it had become more than that. Had become late-night conversations and shared meals and this quiet understanding that they were both damaged people trying to function in a world that demanded wholeness. Was that friendship? Maybe. Was it something else? Possibly. Did she want it to be something else? She didn't let herself answer that question. The court date arrived on a Tuesday in April. Lila wore a navy dress that Rachel had helped her pick out, something professional but not severe, and tried not to throw up in the courthouse bathroom. Adrian found her there, pale and shaking. "You don't have to do this," he said. We can still block the testimony. "I need to do this, for me. Not for the lawsuit. For me." "Okay, then I'll be right there. You look at me if it gets too hard, and we'll get you out." The courtroom was smaller than she'd expected, less dramatic than TV had led her to believe. Marcus sat with his lawyers at one table, looking diminished in a suit that probably cost more than her first car. His parents sat behind him, his mother crying quietly, his father stone-faced and angry. Lila took the stand, swore to tell the truth, looked at Patricia and nowhere else. The questions started simple. "State your name." "How did you know Marcus Carter? When did you get married?" Then they got harder. "Can you describe the nature of your marriage?" Lila took a breath. "It was abusive, physically and emotionally. It lasted 4 years." "Can you provide examples?" She did. Specific incidents. The first time he'd hit her, 6 months in, after she'd forgotten to pick up his dry cleaning. The time he'd locked her in their bedroom for 2 days because she'd embarrassed him at a work function. The broken arm that had finally made her call for help. She said it all calmly, clearly, without crying, and watched Marcus shrink smaller with each word. His lawyer tried to object, claimed it wasn't relevant to the case. The judge allowed it. "Why didn't you leave sooner?" Patricia asked. "Because I was scared. Because he'd threatened to kill me if I tried. Because I didn't have money or family close by or anywhere to go. Because leaving someone like Marcus isn't as simple as just walking out the door." "And when you did leave, you called Mr. Voss. Why?" "Because he'd given me his number months before. Told me to call if I needed help. I was out of options, and he was the only person I could think of who might actually come." "Did he coerce you in any way, pressure you to leave?" "No, he gave me a choice. He's only ever given me choices." Marcus's lawyer took over for cross-examination. He was younger, aggressive, trying to make a name for himself. "Isn't it true that you and Mr. Voss were having an affair before you left your husband?" "No." "Isn't it true that he targeted you specifically, saw a vulnerable married woman, and decided to exploit that vulnerability?" "No. He saw someone who needed help and offered it, that's all." "Come on, Ms. Carter. You expect us to believe that a man like Adrian Voss, a known criminal with ties to organized crime, helped you out of the goodness of his heart?" Patricia objected. The judge sustained it, but the lawyer pressed on. "You're living in his house, eating his food, under his protection. What does he get in return?" Lila looked directly at Marcus for the first time since entering the courtroom. "He gets to know he helped someone, that he saved a life that was worth saving. Unlike my husband, who spent 4 years destroying one." The courtroom went quiet. Marcus's lawyer tried a few more questions, but the damage was done. Lila had said what needed saying, and no amount of legal maneuvering could unsay it. When she stepped down from the stand, Adrian was waiting. He didn't touch her. They were in public, in court, being watched, but his eyes said everything his hands couldn't. The judge took 2 days to issue a ruling, dismissed Marcus's lawsuit entirely, called it frivolous and potentially malicious, ordered Marcus to pay Adrian's legal fees. It was a complete victory. Marcus's parents were furious. His mother called Adrian's house 3 times before being blocked. His father sent a letter threatening further legal action. None of it mattered. The case was closed. Lila stood in the estate's library, holding a copy of the court transcript, and felt something release in her chest. It was over. Actually over. Marcus couldn't touch her legally, couldn't hurt Adrian, couldn't do anything except live with the consequences of his own choices. "How does it feel?" Adrian asked from the doorway. "Like I can finally breathe all the way." He walked into the room, stood near enough that she could see the exhaustion the past weeks had carved into his face. "You did good up there. On the stand. I was proud of you." "You were proud?" "Yeah. Watching you tell your truth without apology, without backing down. That took courage." Lila set down the transcript. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "That lawyer asked what you get out of helping me. You never answered, so I'm asking now, what do you get out of this?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I get to be someone different than who I was raised to be. My father was a violent drunk who made my mother's life hell until the day he died. I watched her suffer for years because nobody helped, nobody intervened, nobody gave a damn. So when I see someone drowning the way she was drowning, I throw the rope I wish someone had thrown her. That's what I get. Peace with the past I can't change. That's all? What else would there be? Lila stepped closer. I don't know. Maybe the same thing I get out of you being here. Which is? Company. Understanding. Someone who sees the damage and doesn't run from it. She paused. Someone I trust. Someone I maybe care about more than I should. The air between them changed, charged with something neither of them had named until now. Lila, Adrian said carefully, you're healing. You're vulnerable. I'm not going to take advantage of that. I'm not asking you to take advantage. I'm telling you how I feel. What I do with that is my choice, remember? You said I get to make my own choices now. And if you're making this choice because I saved you, because you feel grateful or obligated, I'm making it because you're the first man in 4 years who's treated me like a person instead of property. Because you make me laugh. Because you sit with me when I can't sleep and never once make me feel like I'm a burden. She was close enough now to see the conflict in his eyes. Because when I think about leaving here eventually, getting my own place, starting over, the thought of not seeing you every day makes me sad. Adrian's hand reached up, hesitated, then touched her face with a gentleness that made her eyes burn. You deserve someone whole, someone who doesn't carry the kind of damage I carry. Nobody's whole. We're all broken in different ways. The question is whether the broken pieces fit together. And you think ours do? I don't know, but I'd like to find out. He kissed her then, soft and careful, and asking permission with every movement. Lila kissed him back and felt something click into place that she hadn't known was misaligned. They pulled apart slowly. This is probably a terrible idea, Adrian said. Most good things are. I'm serious. I'm not easy to be with. My life is complicated, dangerous sometimes. You'd be signing up for a lot. I've survived a lot already. I think I can handle complicated. She smiled. Besides, you're not getting rid of me that easily. I make excellent focaccia. He laughed, and it was the best sound she'd heard in years. They took it slow. Deliberately, carefully slow. Still separate rooms, still boundaries and space, and the understanding that Lila was still healing, still figuring out who she was outside of trauma. But there were more dinners together, more late-night conversations that bled into early morning, more moments where their hands would brush, and instead of pulling away, they'd let them linger. Dr. Chen noticed during their session. You seem different, she said. Lighter. I'm happy. Is that allowed? Of course it's allowed. Happiness is the goal. I'm just making sure it's healthy happiness, not dependent on someone else's presence. It's not. I'm happy because I'm healing, because I like who I'm becoming. Adrian's just part of that, not the whole thing. Good. That's the distinction that matters. May brought warmer weather and a phone call from Lila's old advisor at the university. Someone had dropped out of the graduate program. There was a spot open if Lila wanted it. She'd have to catch up on coursework she'd missed, but it was doable. Lila accepted before she could overthink it. She told Adrian that night over dinner. I'm going back to school, finishing my degree, becoming a teacher like I always wanted. He smiled. That's great. When do you start? Fall semester, which means I should probably think about getting my own place. Can't live in your guest wing forever. Something flickered across his face. You could, if you wanted. Adrian, I know. I know you need your own space, your own life. I'm just saying the option's there if you want it. Lila reached across the table, took his hand. How about a compromise? I get an apartment close by, build my own life. But I'm here for dinners, for weekends, for whenever we both want company. I can live with that. They found her an apartment in June, small but nice, close enough to the university for an easy commute, far enough from her old place with Marcus that she didn't have to worry about running into ghosts. Adrian helped her move in, actual physical labor, carrying boxes and assembling furniture, looking completely out of place in jeans and a t-shirt. You're terrible at this, Lila said, watching him struggle with an IKEA bookshelf. I have people who usually do this. Well, today you're people. Hand me that dowel. They worked together until the apartment felt like a home. Books on shelves, art on walls, a kitchen stocked with ingredients for recipes she wanted to try. It was small and imperfect and completely hers. That night, Adrian stayed for dinner. They cooked together, burned the rice slightly, laughed about it, ordered pizza instead. "This feels normal," Lila said, sitting on her new couch with a slice of pepperoni. "Is that good or bad?" "Good. Really good. I didn't think I'd ever have normal again." "Normal's overrated. This is better than normal." She leaned against him, felt his arm come around her shoulders, and thought about how far she'd come from that bathroom floor. From broken and terrified to whole and happy. From surviving to actually living. July brought the start of summer classes. Lila threw herself into studying with an intensity that surprised her. Education theory, child psychology, classroom management. It all clicked in ways it hadn't before, maybe because now she understood what it meant to fight for your own future. August brought news that Marcus had moved to another state. His parents had apparently decided he needed a fresh start somewhere his name wasn't associated with scandal. Adrian's people confirmed he'd left, wasn't coming back, was someone else's problem now. "How do you feel about that?" Dr. Chen asked during their monthly session. They'd cut back to monthly now, progress being made. "Relieved. A little sad that he gets to just start over while I'm still dealing with the aftermath, but mostly relieved." "That's fair. You're allowed complicated feelings about it." September brought the fall semester and Lila's first day of student teaching, a classroom full of 7th graders who were simultaneously the most terrifying and most inspiring thing she'd encountered. She came home exhausted and exhilarated, called Adrian immediately to tell him about it. "One of them asked me why I wanted to be a teacher," she said, "and I told her because everyone deserves someone who believes they can be more than their worst day." "That's a good answer. I think my worst day made me a better teacher, made me understand what it means to survive something and come out stronger." "Then it wasn't wasted. None of it was wasted if it brought you here." October marked 6 months since Lila had left Marcus. 6 months of therapy and healing and rebuilding. 6 months of learning to trust herself again, to trust someone else, to believe that happiness wasn't something she had to earn through suffering. She celebrated by having dinner at the estate with Adrian, Mrs. Chen, James, and Rachel. A small gathering of the people who'd helped her survive and rebuild. "To Lila," Adrian said, raising his glass, "who's the strongest person I know?" "To second chances," Rachel added. "To good bread," Mrs. Chen said, making everyone laugh. They ate and talked and laughed until late into the night, and Lila looked around the table and realized this was her family now. Not the one she'd been born into or married into, but the one she'd chosen, the one that had chosen her back. November brought the first real cold snap and a letter from Jennifer Wilson. She'd heard about the lawsuit, about Lila's testimony, about Marcus leaving the state. "Thank you for speaking up," she wrote. "For years I thought I was the only one, that maybe I deserved it somehow. Knowing I wasn't alone, that he did this to someone else, it doesn't make what happened okay, but it makes me feel less crazy. I hope you're healing. I hope you're happy. You deserve both." Lila wrote back that same day, and they began a correspondence that felt like finding a sister in shared survival. December brought snow and finals, and the end of Lila's first semester back in school. She passed everything with grades that made her remember she was smart, capable, worth the investment of time and effort. She spent Christmas at the estate. Adrian gave her a first edition of her favorite book. She gave him a scarf she'd knitted herself. Slightly uneven, but made with care. "It's perfect," he said, wrapping it around his neck despite being indoors. "It's crooked. It's perfect because you made it." They spent the evening by the fire, talking about the year that had passed and the year ahead. About Lila's plans to finish her degree, to get her teaching certification, to maybe one day open her own tutoring center for kids who needed extra help. "You'll be amazing at that," Adrian said. "You're biased." "I'm honest. There's a difference." At midnight, standing on the balcony watching snow fall, over grounds that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat, Lila said, "I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. I didn't think that was possible anymore." "You earned it. We both did." She turned to face him. "Thank you for giving me the chance to earn it." "You did that yourself. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it." "Still, thank you." He kissed her, slow and sweet and full of promises neither of them needed to speak out loud. When they pulled apart, Lila was crying. "Happy tears?" Adrian asked, wiping them away. "The happiest. The year turned. January brought new classes, new challenges, new opportunities to grow. Lila applied for a teaching position at a middle school and got an interview. She prepared for it the way she'd prepared for court testimony, thoroughly, honestly, without apology for the gaps in her resume or the years she'd lost to Marcus. "I took time off," she told the principal during the interview. "Personal reasons, but I'm ready now, more than ready." She got the job. February brought Valentine's Day and Adrian's attempt at cooking dinner, which ended with burned chicken and takeout Chinese instead. They ate it on Lila's apartment floor, laughing at his complete lack of culinary skill. "Stick to managing investments," Lila said. "Leave the cooking to people who won't burn water." "I didn't burn water, I burned chicken. There's a difference." "Is there, though?" March brought Lila's sister's wedding. Rachel had met someone good, someone kind, and she wanted Lila to be her maid of honor. Lila said yes and cried while helping Rachel pick out a dress. "I'm so happy for you," she told her sister. "I'm happy for you too. You and Adrian, it's good. He's good for you." "He is. We're taking it slow, but yeah, it's good." At the wedding, watching Rachel marry someone who looked at her with genuine love, Lila felt something settle in her chest. Hope. Real, tangible hope for futures that included happiness without suffering, love without fear, partnership without power imbalances. Adrian was her date, looking uncomfortable in a suit at an event full of strangers, but staying because Lila had asked him to. "Thank you for being here," she said during the reception. "Where else would I be? Literally anywhere else. I know weddings aren't your thing. You're my thing, so I'm here." It was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to her. April marked 1 year since she'd called Adrian from that bathroom. 1 year of survival and healing and rebuilding. She spent the anniversary doing something normal, teaching her class, grading papers, having dinner with Adrian at her apartment. 1 year, she said over pasta she'd cooked herself. "Can you believe it's been a year? You've come a long way." "We've come a long way." She set down her fork. "I've been thinking about something." "What?" "Moving in together. Actually, together. Not me in your guest wing, but us sharing space. Building something intentional." Adrian went very still. "You sure about that?" "I'm sure I want to try. Sure I want to see what it looks like when we're not just visiting each other's lives, but actually living them together." She paused. "Are you?" "I've wanted that since about June, but didn't want to push." "So that's a yes?" "That's a yes." They found a house in May. Not the estate. That was Adrian's fortress, his business center. This was something smaller, more manageable, more theirs. 4 bedrooms, a real kitchen, a yard for the garden Lila wanted to plant. They moved in together in June, combining furniture and books and lives that had been separate for so long. It wasn't perfect. They argued about closet space and whose dishes to keep and how to organize the garage, but it was real. And real was better than perfect ever could be. July brought Lila's teaching certification and the end of her graduate program. She'd done it. Finished what she'd started 5 years ago, before Marcus, before everything. Adrian threw her a party. Small, just their people, but it felt significant. Mrs. Chen made enough food to feed an army. James gave her a gift card to a teaching supply store. Rachel cried proud tears. "To Lila," Adrian said, raising his glass, "who's proven that it's never too late to become who you were meant to be." "To second chances and new beginnings," someone else added. "To surviving and thriving," Lila said, her voice catching. "To all of us who thought we couldn't and did anyway." They drank to that. August brought the start of the school year and Lila's first day as an actual teacher. Her own classroom, her own students, her own chance to be for them what she'd needed when she was drowning. Someone who believed they could be more than their worst moments. She put a quote on her classroom wall. "Strength isn't never falling down. It's getting back up every time you do." The kids asked where it came from. "Someone who learned it the hard way," she told them. September brought an unexpected phone call, Marcus's mother asking if they could talk. Lila almost said no, almost hung up. But curiosity won out. They met at a neutral coffee shop, public and safe. Marcus's mother looked older, smaller, defeated in a way Lila had never seen her. "I wanted to apologize," she said without preamble, "for not seeing what my son was doing, for enabling it, for all of it." "Why now?" "Because he did it again. in his new state. New woman, same pattern. She wiped her eyes. She pressed charges. He's in jail awaiting trial. And I finally had to admit that we created this, his father and I, by cleaning up his messes, by pretending he was fine when he wasn't. Lila didn't know what to say. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Marcus's mother continued. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, what he did, what we let him do. And I'm sorry. Okay, Lila said. Thank you for telling me. They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Then Marcus's mother left and Lila sat alone with her coffee, processing. She told Adrian about it that night. How do you feel? He asked. Sad for her, angry at her, relieved that maybe Marcus will finally face real consequences. She leaned against him. Mostly just grateful that's not my life anymore. It never will be again. I'll make sure of it. I know, but also I'll make sure of it. I'm not the same person who stayed for 4 years. I'm not her anymore. No, you're someone much stronger. October brought an unexpected gift. Adrian's daughter Emma came to visit. She was 10 now, curious and bright and cautious around her father in a way that broke Lila's heart. You're Lila, Emma said, shaking her hand formally. I am. You're Emma. Dad talks about you a lot. Good things, I hope. The best things. They spent the weekend together, the three of them, and it was awkward and beautiful and felt like building something fragile but worth protecting. Emma asked questions about teaching, about Lila's students, about whether she'd ever been scared of anything. All the time, Lila told her honestly. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the thing anyway. Emma thought about that. Like you leaving your mean husband? Lila glanced at Adrian, who looked apologetic. Yeah, like that. That was brave. Thank you. I think so too. When Emma left, she hugged Lila goodbye and whispered, I'm glad Dad has you. I'm glad he has you too. November brought Thanksgiving, their first in the new house. Lila cooked a feast with Mrs. Chen's help, invited everyone who'd been part of her healing. Rachel and her husband, James and his girlfriend, Dr. Chen, both of them, Jennifer Wilson, who'd flown in from Portland for the holiday. They ate until they were too full, laughed until their sides hurt, shared stories about survival and second chances and the lives they'd built from broken pieces. I'm grateful for all of you, Lila said when Adrian asked everyone to share what they were thankful for. For second chances, for people who throw ropes to drowning people, for the possibility of happiness after trauma. Hear, hear, someone said, and everyone drank to that. December brought the second Christmas. Adrian gave Lila a key to his study, his most private space, and she understood what it meant. Trust, full trust. She gave him a photo album she'd made, pictures of the past year and a half, her healing journey, their journey, moments captured and preserved. So we never forget how far we came, she said. He kissed her, and it felt like coming home. On New Year's Eve, they stood on the balcony of their house watching fireworks in the distance, and Lila thought about the person she'd been 2 years ago, broken and terrified and convinced she'd never escape. What are you thinking about? Adrian asked. How different everything is. How I almost didn't make it. How glad I am that I did. Me too. Thank you for everything, for saving me when I couldn't save myself. You saved yourself. You just let me help. Still, thank you. The fireworks exploded overhead, brilliant and loud and beautiful, and Lila realized this was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not without scars or memories or occasional hard days, but real. Earned. Hers. She'd survived. More than that, she'd healed. And even more than that, she'd found a life worth living on the other side of trauma. The clock struck midnight. Adrian kissed her. The new year began. And Lila Carter, survivor and teacher and woman who'd rebuilt herself from nothing, smiled and believed in futures that included joy. Because sometimes, when you're drowning, someone throws you a rope. And sometimes, you're brave enough to grab it. And sometimes, on the other side of survival, you find that life was worth fighting for all along.